Come in.
Good evening. I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order for Monday, May 13th, 2019. And as required by open meeting law, you are hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chairman prior to the start of the meeting. Hearing nobody, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Anybody for a weekly briefing? Nobody? Anybody for public comments and announcements? Ed?
I'd just like to make an announcement that this Saturday and Sunday at Drummer Boy Park, the Lower Cape Kiwanis Club will be having their annual plant sale. It's their major fundraiser. Funds they raise, they go to provide leadership training for our youth and provide scholarships for the graduates of Nauset, Monomoy, and Cape Cod Tech High School. I encourage you to come. It's a great plant selection that's put together by Friends Market in Orleans, and I think you'll have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Anybody else for public comments and announcements? Okay, hearing nobody, we'll move to the consent agenda, and Ed will just hold this one outside.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'd like to present the consent agenda and move approvals of the items thereon, including the minutes of April 22nd, 2019, May 6, 2019, a vote to approve the recommendation of the Department of Public Works Director to accept the Barnstable County bid for gas and diesel for FY20. We'll be holding item C. Item D, vote to accept the resignation of Barry Knowles as a member of the Brooks Academy Museum Commission. And item E, vote to approve use.
Chair, could we hold that? I've received additional information that requires that be held.
Okay, so
Okay,
right.
we'll hold item D then.
Item
E.
Oh, item E, okay.
Yeah. Hold E.
I move that the items not held be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. You want to do C separately?
Yeah, just have a question on C if I can, Chris. Given that Lower County Road wasn't passed at town meeting, is there any plan, or have you spoken to the DPW director about using any of the other money to do minor repairs on that road, the puddling? That's question one. Question two, as I just want to know what the procurement process is for chip sealing.
I will defer to the DPW director, and we did have a discussion on topic one today, but I'll defer to him to respond.
Thank you. Good evening. Lynn Cooper, DPW Director. I met with Mr. Clark on that very subject today, Selectman McCaskill. We have some internal debate on what to do about Lower County Road going forward, and at some point we will have something probably to bring forward. The procurement process for chip seal is like all of our other road maintenance items that are done through Barnstable County collectively with all the other municipalities.
So this was bid through Barnstable County for the chip sealing.
That is correct.
And who is going to be doing the chip sealing?
Allstate Asphalt has the contract.
Okay. And then given your conversation with Chris today and the internal debate, does it make sense to vote $338,000 tonight before we continue that debate on what we're going to do with Lower County Road with the limited funds that we have?
Absolutely. This is part of the normal road maintenance plan that Mr. Nickerson's put together that's been in the works. We have a 5-year plan. This represents year 1. We had put the brakes on this stuff. He honestly wanted this in front of you a month ago or longer. We put the brakes on for Lower County Road because we said we would contribute. This is just part of the normal maintenance. We don't know, I do not have a recommendation on what to do about Lower County Road. We're going to have to throw some money at it. But given the reservations about future sewering and so forth, it probably won't be, a lot. Probably more like partial depth patching, that type of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Chris?
think just, I don't want to be cryptic, we did have a discussion, at least administratively. We will do just minor repairs, and then any kind of major project is what we're talking about. When do we revisit that?
Right.
That's when we're going to have the discussion, whether we tie that to the sewer project or whether we try to do something before the sewer project. That's where we have to have the discussion. We're not just going to let it go, but we don't have sufficient funds to do any significant work
Right.
because we didn't get approval.
And town meeting
So
told
it'll
us
just
that.
be minor repairs.
Right, thank you. Anything else? Oh, Don?
Yeah, as to E, first of all, I appreciate that the finance director looked into this. It was confirmed by legal counsel, and I gather that we can't legally do what we're talking about here. And kind of, that's what the whole point of having a direct report as a finance director is about, to be able to make sure we can re-verify information. But the question I have is, now that we've verified what we can't do, what are we doing?
Chris?
So, we had a fair amount of discussions today. Really what's transpired is the cable funds were changed last year to offset receipt account. And we should have done an appropriation for capital appropriation out of that to cover some of these legal costs. So it's because the accounting changed, and we didn't want to change, it was a change that was dictated to us by the state. We should have taken a different approach when we did the budget, so we missed our opportunity. So we are going to have a meeting to have a discussion on it. It is a legal budget item, so it would be appropriate to fund it out of the legal. We already did an ascertainment hearing, we've already incurred some costs, and then seek reimbursement from the cable fund, probably at next year's town meeting for any of those expenses. So it was more because of a change in the accounting that we didn't react quickly enough to kind of catch it, so I do appreciate Carol catching that.
Thank you. Michael?
I move that we approve the Chapter 90 project requests as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Okay, we'll move to public hearings and presentations. And Ed, would you read the public hearing notice?
Harwich Board of Selectmen, notice of public hearing, improvements to Seth Whitefield Road, Hawks Nest and Round Cove Road, May 13th, 2019. The Harwich Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 13th, 2019, no earlier than 6:30 p.m. during the regularly scheduled meeting. This hearing will be held in the Don B. Griffin Room located at Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, for the purpose of discussing improvements to Seth Whitefield Road, a.k.a. Hawks Nest Road and Round Cove Road, proposed by Robert Freitas. All members of the public having an interest in this topic are cordially invited to attend the public hearing and provide information and testimony relevant to these proposals. Information on this matter is available in the Selectman's office. Harwich Board of Selectmen, published in the Cape Cod Chronicle, April 25th, 2019.
Thank you, Ed. Chris, if you want to give an overview first, and then we'll go to Mr. Freitas, if you want to
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
come up to the table.
Just in terms of the overview, the board had requested really for the DPW director to do work. So we did send out a map just to let people know. What has prompted this is that there was improvements made to the road previously by Mr. Freitas for, through planning board purposes. He did seek a license agreement to do some of the work. He now comes back and asks for a license agreement.
The license agreement was for Hawks Nest.
Hawks Nest.
Yeah, Seth Whitefield.
I don't think I said Round Cove, did I?
No, he didn't.
So we had a license agreement to do work on Hawks Nest, and now the license agreement, he comes back and asks that because it is a public way, would the town consider doing the work to do what he had originally laid out and intended on doing. The other part to this, there was a second request that was made to make improvements to Round Cove Road, so the map shows, and I believe the request this evening is for, and actually, these maps are the ones that are for Mr. Freitas. But the work that's being requested this evening is to see if the Board of Selectmen will direct town administration to have DPW go and make these improvements, or whether they want to have the license agreement and have the developer make those improvements. I believe in a nutshell, that's the question before the board tonight.
Thank you, Chris. So I'll go to you, Mr. Freitas, and Mr. Dubuque, and ask you to stay focused on the improvements to Seth Whitefield / Hawks Nest and Round Cove Road, and to limit that, because then once you give an overall view of why you're here this evening, we'll go to the public for public comment.
Okay, well, I'm Bob Freitas. I was asking the town to put T-base on the small portion of Hawks Nest that I haven't done it on, and widen Round Cove Road so I can get in and out of there, or everybody can get in and out of there easier without damaging vehicles. There's a lot of people that go out there to walk the dogs and use the park. I know some people are concerned about the traffic. You're probably not going to want to like this idea, but you could fix all of Hawks Nest Road, and then a lot of people could come in both directions to the park instead of just up my road. I mean, at this point, I get almost all the traffic, which I don't think that's all that fair, but if they fixed it both directions, or all three, that would probably cut down on everyone's traffic. It would probably disperse it more evenly. I think this is exactly like Bell's Neck. It's partly paved for a little bit, and then it's T-base. And from what I remember, they T-based Bell's Neck. I don't think it was that long ago, because I don't remember it
So
being.
I'm just going to interrupt you to
Yeah.
focus on Round Cove Road
Okay.
and Hawks Nest. That's what we're here tonight to speak about.
Okay, well, I just wanted to bring it up because it seems identical. It's basically a park. The road's T-based. Bell's Neck is 24 feet wide of just T-base.
And again, I'm going to remind you that we're here for Hawks Nest and
Okay.
Round Cove Road. And you have lots on those roads, and so that's why we're here
Yeah.
this evening, so.
Okay, so, I believe it, according to Mass General Law, it's supposed to be maintained by the road, by the town. And the town has a minimum standard of a town road supposed to be cleared a minimum of 20 feet. Now, I'm sure it grew in over the years, because it was a main thoroughfare a long time ago, but the highway cut it off, and I'm sure that's what made it grow in. And Round Cove Road has always been a town road for many years, and I think that just grew in because of lack of use. The town's minimum standard is 16 feet by 16 feet with 12 feet of gravel. I would just like to see the town maintain it to the minimum standard. That's it.
Thank you. Did you want to?
Yes, please. First off, thank you very much for letting us speak, and I think a lot of this just kind of stemmed from misinformation. I know the original agenda said paving, that we wanted paving, and we never, ever wanted paving. That was a mistake on the agenda, not on our part. Also, you know, I've read the packet, and somebody sent this out to all the neighbors, and, you know, there's just several things in it that just aren't right. We're not selling large subdivisions. We've got one subdivision, and we're selling lots. We've sold one lot so far to a family that's building a 3-bedroom house. We are probably going to build on a lot out there. I build a 3-bedroom house. We're not building mansions. We're also, the lot sizes are huge because that's the zoning out there. A lot of people are saying, oh, they're going to build great big houses. They're 100 square foot. The minimum zoning is 100,000 square feet. And because of that, you may build a big house. You can put a 7 or 8 bedroom house out there. That's not what we're designing it for, but that's just the way it is when you have large lots. The map that's up here is actually the one that I was gonna show, but a couple things, I thought the other one would be up.
She needs to stay
Yeah,
by the mic.
you have to
just
stay over
because
by
we-
the mic,
We
so.
need to have you by the
We
microphone
can
so
see
people can
the-
hear at home.
You can see it.
Right.
Okay, this one here, I just, you know, I see the complaints that, that it's gonna speed up traffic, and my concern for the pond and the woods out there is fires and people drowning in the pond. If you're at the fire station, and I went and sat at the fire station and did this, it's 5 minutes to get to the pond from the fire station if you go down Round Cove Road. If you go the way that they would have to go now, because Round Cove's so narrow, it's 2 minutes longer. That was my point on that. I don't know if the other one can go up, the one that's below it, I think, maybe?
Jamie, could you move to the next slide? Thank you.
The other thing I did, is I sat at the end of Round Cove Road and I said, okay, let's see which is quicker if I wanted to get to the end of Queen Anne. And it's 2 minutes, it's 4 minutes to go down 137 to 39 out along Queen Anne to the end of Hawk's Nest. And it's 2 minutes slower to go through the woods. So I don't think people are going to make that a shortcut. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some increased traffic, but I don't think it's going to be a humongous amount of increased traffic. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. The other thing is the police are going to be able to get down to the pond. They already can. I've noticed, I'm down there almost every single day. I ride my horse through there, I have dogs, I walk through there. The pond area has never been so clean. There's no trash down there. People are just not doing what they used to do down there. They're not dumping stuff like they used to. Granted, it still happens, you know, people come out and dump things and we haul it off and it goes to the dump. But it's not like it used to be. The police are able to patrol it. They go down there at night. I see them drive by my house. They weren't able to do that before. The puddles were so huge, you literally couldn't drive. You could drive a large truck around them or through them.
What about all the other people that
I'm going to
wrote in?
say that. All right, can I possibly
You
point?
need to stay by the mic.
I have to stay by the mic, okay. I wish we have, do you have the map that originally came with the hearing notice? The one that shows?
Just to be clear, Jamie is accommodating because these maps came to her this afternoon, so.
I appreciate that. But technically, that's another thing. I did send those maps 2 weeks ago.
I'm just clarifying for
Okay.
Jamie's
All right,
perspective.
I know, she's doing an awesome job, but I did send those 2 weeks ago, and I just called to check on it because they weren't in the packet. It looks like this. Yeah, it's in the
Yes,
packet, yeah.
they are. It's shortly after the public hearing notice, Jamie.
Are we like page 70? If you- I'm just gonna take a guess, around 70, somewhere down there.
It's, I think it's page.
Page 33.
Oh, 33,
Page
wow.
33, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Jamie.
It'd be nice if I could approach may I?
You have to sit so people can hear you, so you
Oh,
can,
okay,
people
all
can
right.
see the screen.
Okay,
in
all right,
there.
that's fine. All right, if you can see the yellow line, that's the part of Round Cove Road that there's no houses, is that right? Yeah, I guess so, okay. The people that own on the south side of that, that's not Hawk's Nest. Hawk's Nest is on the other side of the road and also the portion north of that yellow line. So there's people that own the property there that are interested in having Round Cove widened. I have letters from them, there's somebody here. If you go down the blue line, there's people that own on the east side. The lot there is owned by Mr. Beretti. He sent a letter. He would like to have it widened and surfaced, not paved, just gravel.
That's the corner lot.
The corner lot. And then there's us, and the section of us is only you know, not that much. But there's other people that own land on the east side of Hawks Nest Road. The west side of Hawks Nest Road is the park. A lot of people think that it's all park. It's all on the, park is just on the west side. All that land in around the sand pit, that's all privately owned land.
So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public hearing unless you have
Okay,
something
can I
new.
just mention some, these are the people that I've spoken with that own land on Hawks Nest that would like to see it widened. Suzanne Moody, and she sent a letter, but somehow that's not in the packet. I'll give you all a copy of it. And she sent that letter a couple weeks ago. I don't know why. She sent me a copy of the email that was sent to the Selectman's office. Todd Perry, Guy Beretti, Katie and Jason Rhodes, and Jack and Brittany Geishecker. We all live along Hawks Nest Road, and we would like to see it surfaced, and we'd like to see Round Cove widened so that emergency vehicles can get in and out, people can get to the pond, and we can get out that way too. I mean, it makes it a little shorter for us to be able to get to Round Cove, so, yeah. Thank you.
You just hand them to Chris, and he can make part of the information.
These are pictures of Bell's Neck, I know.
Okay, so you can just hand those to Chris, because we're focusing only on the agenda items. So now I'm going to open it up to the public.
My
Sorry?
name is Helene Borges,
Stay
and I
here.
live on Round Cove Road. I've been there for 20-plus years.
Could you just speak into the microphone so everyone can hear
My name
you?
is Helene Borges. I live on Round Cove Road. We've been there for about 20-plus years. There's been changes. Some changes aren't good. Some changes we definitely don't want to see. You're seeing a lot of faces here, and they live on Round Cove, Cannon Hill, Mary Beth. We, as the residents, have gotten together, put information packet together, and we have a petition that I'd like to submit to all of you right now.
Okay,
Would that be okay?
hand it into Chris.
This was in the packet. this was the-
No, this wasn't in the packet. This is a petition that we got together and put together.
I think we got this as a separate letter.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I was
think,
gonna say, I read it on.
This
I read it in
information
the
I,
material.
Yeah.
I've seen.
Thank you.
thank you.
The Round Cove Road area has been passable for the fire department, the police department, and anyone that would like to get through there. It has never been a problem to get down Round Cove Road. There are a lot of families that live in that area. They have their little babies in strollers. We have dogs that people walk down there all the time. There has been a section of Hawk Nest that is 23-plus cleared to get to the Round Cove Four Corners. There's been trees illegally cut on the state forest side to widen that road. We're here as a neighborhood to say that we don't want this. You're going to bring more traffic down our street. The intersection of 137 and Round Cove is horrendous to pull out because of the bend on 137. You can say that it's faster for the fire department to get down past into the Hawk Nest Forest, but now the fire station has been moved to 39, so they don't have to come down 137, they can just go straight. We believe that this is to their advantage because they don't want the traffic going by their house. They want to deter the traffic. Round Cove Road was never meant to be a throughway to get down to Hawk Nest. At one time, it was just a cart road. So here we are in front of all of you, asking you to turn this down. Thank you.
Thank you. You have to go to the microphone.
Hi, Nadine Anzaldi. I'm from Harriman Heath Road, which is right behind Hawks Nest. And I also have a petition to submit to you from neighbors in that area and the Harwich residents. May I bring them up?
Sure, bring them to Chris, and he can distribute them.
Thank you.
All right, so, well, I was going to read what's on top of the petition, but basically it's what Helene had said. I just wanted to let you know a little bit about how we found out about this and when. It was, someone had referred us to a link of a hearing or a meeting with the Board of Selectmen back in April, and we watched it. This was the first that we'd heard of it. We attended the May 5th meeting, and a couple of my neighbors and I decided to put together a petition. And so Helene did the Round Cove section, my neighbor and I did the Harwich Heath section. The people that we talked to, once they were informed about the implications of further road changes and how it would impact the surrounding neighborhoods, woodlands and pond also, every person we approached, with the exception of one, agreed to sign on. Many people had stated their preference for the former country road appeal of Hawks Nest and wondered why the road had been widened in the first place. But nonetheless, people are opposed to further changes happening to Hawk Nest and Round Cove roads, and these are the reasons why, real quick. They do not want their taxes supplementing road changes to benefit a developer's project. Hawks Nest Road has been widened to 18 feet, which I believe was what was permitted, but it's beyond that in several places, up to, I think, 24 feet. To widen Round Cove and grade both roads with recycled asphalt, which eventually does harden to a smooth surface if enough traffic pass over it. It would open up a throughway. That's what we believe just by looking at Google Maps and this map here. It would be a shortcut, and it would be a shortcut because it would come up on people's GPSs, you know, whereby people would bypass Route 137 and 39 intersection and the Queen Anne Rotary. Two-way, faster-moving traffic on Hawks Nest and Round Cove roads would increase substantially, disrupting the quiet country character of the adjacent neighborhoods. The woodlands and the pond are conservation areas that are already open to the public. Increasing traffic and visitors by widening access would impact negatively on its already fragile ecosystem. And I would refer people to the report that was done in 1914 by the Department of Conservation and Recreation to find out what kind of a jewel we've got here. I mean, it's not that we're being stingy and say, no, people can't come. They can come. It's just that if we start putting up just about a flashing road sign saying this way off of the highway, the ecosystem can't tolerate that kind of impact. It's fragile as it is already. Some of the species that were studied there in 2014 by the DCR had said that several of them were of special concern, and one in particular was threatened. And it wasn't, it's not just the Department of Conservation and Recreation, also the National Heritage and Endangered Species Program talks about the core habitat, and people can go there. I'm not going to take up any more time. It's just that the erosion that comes from increased traffic and increased numbers of people creates a system whereby phosphorus leaks into the water, causing that blue-green algae, and it gets polluted. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll ask speakers to please, you know, if people have covered the topics that you were going to address, then limit your speech only so there's many people here to speak this evening, and obviously time could be an issue, so.
Hi, I'm Peggy Gabor. I had a chance to go back through the planning board, which I attended a lot of meetings. So I'm going to read off some things to just go through some time periods here. June 29th, 2008, Robert D. Fratis Jr. wrote a letter to Office of Selectmen, to whom it may concern. I'm writing in regards to land on Hawk Nest Road, aka Seth Whitefield Road, a road with a 33-foot layout. I'm going to begin applying for a building permit on a lot identified as 153 Seth Whitefield Road. The lot's recorded Barnstable Registry of Deeds. I'm enclosing map 95. Further on in the letter is, I am also considering bringing power in from Round Cove Road, as it is almost the same distance. There is also another property owner, Todd Perry, on Round Cove Road, who wishes to develop his lot, and we may share in utility installation costs if we can bring power in from that direction. So I would also like permission to widen the length of Hawkness Road to Round Cove Road, and then from that point to the developed section of Round Cove Road. I will do all the widening within the layout. April 15th, 2017, Robert D. Frattis Jr. to Ali Sabatino, our former town planner. At the bottom of the letter, I'm writing and request permission to widen and flatten Hawknest Road, AKA Seth Whitefield Road. Please note, I will be widening approximately 1,000 feet of road and would like to flatten the rest of the road down as far as Round Cove Road and then up Round Cove. I am approaching the Planning Department Planning Board for approval. May 16th, 2017, to Elaine Banta, head clerk, from Chris Nickerson, maintenance manager. Determination of adequate access improvements to a town way. I have received plans submitted by Robert Frattis for the second round of improvements to Seth Whitefield Road. I would like it to be noted that some work has already taken place by Mr. Frattis and his subcontractor along this stretch of road prior to permitting. June 7th, 2017, to Planning Board from Ali Sabatino, Town Planner. Description: Mr. Frattis is proposing improvements to Seth Whitefield Road at his own expense. He is proposing to widen approximately 1,000 feet from Round Cove Road, traveling south on Seth Whitefield Road. Plans have been presented for a portion of the work he is proposing. Page 2. Planning staff comments. The applicant is requesting to make improvements to Seth Whitefield Road at his own expense, expanding an existing town road from 9 feet dirt wide to 18 wide gravel. The purpose of this increase is to create safe and adequate access to his property for future approval, not required A&R plan. After review of the application, I offer the following comments. The plans do not show the proposed widening of Round Cove Road as requested in the applicant's letter. The applicant should be limited to what is shown on the submitted plan. If the applicant would like to widen Round Cove Road, revised plans should be submitted to include such widening. There shall be no work extending beyond the section of Seth Whitefield Hawknest presented on the plan entitled. The work shall be completed to the satisfaction of the Highway Department and the town engineer, which led to the license agreement in 2017, which he was supposed to widen the road to 18 feet. He widened it beyond. He didn't finish it. He was supposed to finish a gravel road that is still uncompleted. I would like to ask that Mr. Frattis finish the gravel only, no tar, and finish the gravel road. And I guess, I don't know, I'm wondering about legal fees because he breached the whole contract. 90 days before he was supposed to finish the road, he was to contact Mr. Clark, which would set off a chain of events. Mr. Clark was then to notify the DPW to check the road for its gravel, and it was supposed to also be the town engineer to check that the road was widened strictly to the 18 feet. That never happened because the road was widened to 26 feet and the gravel was never placed down, and now we have Mr. Freitas here asking for us, the town, to finish the road for him.
And
Thank
to-
you.
To your point, that's the map you see up on.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I should have,
Yeah,
yeah.
just so people in the audience and at
right.
home understand that that's the map you're looking at.
exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Noelle Donovan. I live within the Six Ponds district where we're talking about. Before moving ahead with helping the development to improve the road, I have a few concerns with what has transpired so far. The Hawks Nest Road is subject to the scenic road corridor regulations as part of the Six Ponds district to maintain the scenic character of the road. There shall be a minimum of a 100-foot buffer of natural vegetation, including understory and overstory vegetation. There have been some violations of that thus far. There's should be no new lawn area in the 100-foot buffer zone, and there is. Clearing is much wider than the curb cut. Large area of lawn has already been planted. Understory vegetation has been cleared and not replanted, and there are 2 curb cuts right next to each other, one which is Raptor Road, and the other one I was a little confused about why 3 Raptor Road's driveway is on Seth Whitefield Road and not on Raptor Road.
Do you have an answer for that, Mr. Freitas, or?
The owner chose to put it there. It's,
So the owner chose, is that where the frontage is?
it has frontage, it's like a corner lot, basically.
Which road?
It's listed as 3 Raptor Road.
So she's saying that the lot, instead of having the access from Raptor Road, has it from,
Your
Seth.
question was a good question. Which road is the frontage on?
right, that's my
Well,
question.
it's a corner, it's basically like a corner lot, it has frontage on both.
So if it's a corner lot, there's even more restrictions. So we can discuss that later. Did you have, so we'll have to get you an answer to that question.
Thank you. The clearing on a widened section of Hawks Nest Road is excessive, and sides of road have not been revegetated, which is now causing erosion on both sides of the road. I don't have any problem with the town maintaining the road, but I would like to see these issues addressed before any additional improvements. Thank you.
Well, can I comment on, the road was seeded on both sides.
Hold on, please hold your applause.
The road was seeded on both sides last year, but I can't stop people from driving all over it, so it kills it off. It was seeded. It's still, some of it's growing back this year, you can tell that it was seeded.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the public.
Good evening, Jerry Beltis, Harriman Heath. Regarding Hawks Nest Road and Seth Whitefield Road, reportedly the road was given to the town by the county, and it's not listed anywhere, and we can't find records that the town voted to accept the road. So that whole issue of Hawks Nest Road, Seth Whitefield Road being a town road is somewhat questionable. And if the town would be doing work on it, that is probably improper to be doing work on a road that is not listed as a town road. So that shouldn't be happening. Second of all, being a member of a committee in town, I had recently had to take the conflict of interest class. And it's in the class for conflict of interest for the town to be giving any of its assets to a private individual. If anything has to be done with that, it has to go out to bid, and the highway department would bid it out to the highest bidder who was going to get the product. You just can't give stuff away. So it's conflict of interest, and it's a question of who owns the road.
Thank you. Anybody else to speak?
My name is Carol Verlick. I live on Round Cove Road. I have a letter from my neighbor who lives on the corner of 137 and Round Cove Road. He agrees with most of what has already been said. And he mentioned the bad curve on 137, and it said, he mentioned an accident from a member of my church, St. Peter's Lutheran Church. She was coming out of our parking lot, and she was broadsided by a truck who was going, I don't think too fast, but it was a lot of traffic, and she was broadsided. She died 4 days later. And then this letter is from William Fitzpatrick, by the way. He said, furthermore, the part of Round Cove Road from my home on the corner is a quiet residential neighborhood. There is already plenty of summer traffic on this section of road, mainly from my observation from young people using the pond both day and night as a party destination. And then he mentioned, I'm not going to read the whole thing. After studying the proposed changes, driving the route from Queen Anne Road to Seth Whitefield Road, full circle, back to Round Cove Road, and talking with my neighbors, I am convinced that the only one who will benefit from the proposed changes is the person asking for the changes at the expense of our quiet neighborhood. I have lived in my home for almost 15 years. I love my neighbors in my neighborhood. We take pride in our little patch of Harwich. I am asking the board not to approve these so-called improvements, which would definitely impact the quality of our lives for the worse. Be a good neighbor and do the right thing, please. Respectfully, Bill Fitzpatrick.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Margot Fenn. I live on John Joseph Road. I do not live right in the Hawks Nest neighborhood, but I think many of the folks who have spoken tonight have spoken well about the issues for the neighborhood. I'm speaking as somebody who's walked up there for the last 30 years. Walk my dog there, people go and ride their horses, they bird watch, they go to the ponds to swim, to fish. It's one of the few wild areas left in town. 20 years ago, the town and the county went through a very careful planning process to create the Six Ponds DCPC, which encompasses this whole area, and Hawks Nest Road goes right through the middle of it. And it seems to me that it's crazy to encourage more vehicle traffic through a very sensitive natural resource area like this. It's a place where people can go and walk and appreciate nature, and it should stay that way. And I see no benefit to anybody but a handful of people of widening this road. And I was really struck with the results of last week's town meeting when the town voters were unwilling to fund improvements to Lower County Road, which carries hundreds, if not thousands, of vehicle trips every single day. And it seems crazy if we are that constrained in terms of our town finances to be spending town funds on a road that really is better left as the cart path that it's always been. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Abid Raouf, 70 Round Cove Road. We bought the house in 1996. We've been living there comfortably, enjoying the environment, and we have a good time there. The most important thing to know about this area, really, Round Cove, Mary Beth, is a community not for elderly people, retired people, as people think. I walk, I run in the area every day. What I see, young kid waiting for the bus. So any expansion of the road will reduce the safety and of the children as well as the members of the community. Other point I would like to make, counter to the presentation of the gentleman here, he said if we widen the road around Cove, then we'll have more people walking their dog. They enjoy the scenery. Contrary to that, once you widen the road, there will be no people walking. No people taking dog with them. I see a lot of people from outside 137 come to our area because it's the only place they can walk, enjoy the scenery, and they feel comfortable. Second thing, which is very important here, I remember when the town wanted to pave the road, they gave us the argument. They have to make a narrow road because all the utility are located under the ground. To improve that, they said it costs a lot of money. Now, can you imagine two-way road? It's going to be very expensive for the town. That has to be a very important point to be considered. The last thing I would say, any expansion of the road or widening the road will create more problem. More people go to drive their car day and night, and probably they go to party by the lake in the area and created hazard, fire, or problem of this order. So I hope you will consider the safety of the neighborhood, the environment of the area, and the most important thing, the joy that we have being in the area of Round Cove Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dan Wolf. Live at 94 Nathan Walker. It's hard for me to say that because for the last 33 years we've lived on 168 Main Street, but about 3 weeks ago we moved. One of the reasons we moved is because the GPS technology is very good at giving people the fastest route between point A and B. And I'll tell you, the maps that you saw up there are predicated on no traffic. And one of my concerns about this is that technology will actually route people down Round Cove and Hawks Nest Road when there's congestion at the four corners at 137 and 39. It's a really dynamic technology. So we really have to be careful about understanding this. The other things I'll say at the outset is that normally in a dynamic like this, a developer is asked to pay for mitigation of the impact of their project. Unless I'm missing something, this is actually backwards. The developer is asking the town to pay for the impact that their project might have relative to traffic flow and relative to the impact of the residences. And that's really kind of ass backwards, and I don't understand it. Maybe there's something I'm missing about the request here. But I will say this, as a newcomer to the community, and it's so nice to meet a lot of our new neighbors, although maybe a better setting would be more appropriate. Let's party later on. I will say that I've been using the woods there. I've been a beneficiary of Hawks Nest in that whole area, the Six Ponds District of Critical Planning Concern, for almost 40 years. It's one of my favorite places on Cape Cod. And I will tell you, the quiet enjoyment of that jewel of Harwich will be impacted without regard to what we do to, quote, improve. I really think we need to test the vocabulary here, because the word improve is, you're hearing it from the residents there and from the neighbors. No one sees this as an improvement except for a very small number of people. If you were to do this, it really would require, I don't know if technically it would require, I'd have to ask Link that, it would really require that a full-blown study be done of the impact of any change or improvement on the environment, on the traffic flow, and on the safety in that area. We're talking about access of emergency vehicles. How about all the kids and dog walkers and recreational people in the park relative to vehicles that are moving faster? So there really needs to be a lot of thought, even if, and I would urge the board not to move forward with this, even if there were something done. One thing I've heard tonight which concerns me is I think there needs to be a look at what already has happened there relative to the environmental impact, relative to the widening and the cutting and the curb cuts. You can't just say, hey, my address might be Raptor, but I'd like the curb cut to go through to Hawks Nest Road. Those days are way past. So a lot of work, I think, to be done, but certainly tonight I hope that we don't move forward with this. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Plum. I am that last house on Round Cove Road. 15 years ago, I purchased that house because it was at the end of a bumpy dirt road, secluded in the woods, in a very quiet, peaceful neighborhood. I look around. I know no less than a dozen people here by first name. Most of their dogs I know as well. And I do applaud the speakers ahead of me doing more homework and well-spoken. I have already, with the current improvements done to Round Cove Road, observed a considerable increase in traffic because of navigational apps that direct people. The shortest route from Route 6 to Harwich Center is via Round Cove Road, and the number of vehicles proceeding down there with out-of-state plates has exponentially increased just with the small improvements that were unfortunately done recently to Round Cove Road, and widening that thoroughfare would simply support more traffic in a precious area that we all love and adore, and for that reason live there. So I request that no further work nor improvements be done to this precious environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kim Kastner, and a little over a year ago, my husband and I moved to Harwich, and we live at 29 Mary Beth Lane. one of the main reasons we moved to this area as opposed to other parts of the Cape was the wild backyard that ends up on Round Cove. And our dog and I can walk wherever we want to walk, and I would just hate to see this change and have that be just a busy road for people to get to from one place to another. It's really nice the way it is now. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Sandy McClarty. We live just across 137 on Pleasant Bay Road. My wife and I have 5 children, and we enjoy the Hawks Nest Park all the time. It's truly a treasure that Harwich possesses. It's one of the few treasures left. I see since we moved back to the Cape in 2015, all kinds of construction around the area. It's alarming, and I would just like to echo the sentiment that we should preserve this area. I grew up going to Nickerson State Park. That was my stomping grounds. Hawks Nest reminds me of that. It's one of the few areas, along with the water department, that nobody knows about. But my kids truly use these areas, and it's a way of connecting with nature, so that I believe when they grow up, it will have they will be able to interact with their environment in a different way had they not had that experience of playing in the woods.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Helene Borges from Round Cove Road, and I'm sitting there, and a few things came to my mind that I'd like to mention. They said that it's clean down there at Hawk Nest Pond. There's no trash. The reason there is no trash down there is because there are a few people that get together and they go down there and they clean it. I don't know if they're here tonight, but they go down there and they clean it. I want to say about 4 or 5 years ago, I was out there walking my dog, and at the intersection of the Round Cove and Hawk Nest, coming back up Hawk Nest, I found a hypodermic needle on the Hawk Nest forest side in the road. So basically, if you open this up to more traffic, you're looking at more partiers going down there. It's just going to bring too much more not nice things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Patty Bowman. I live in the area, and I'm in this area walking my dog and enjoying the area every single day. And I think if people would work together, we say we're there cleaning up, we're doing this, we're doing that. I'm part of one of those groups that does that. And I think if we all kind of work together to do this, I see everybody's valid points with this, but they own this land. And I don't see 2 people that care more about this area than Liz and Bob. I've seen them out cleaning things. I've seen them talking to people. I've seen them doing the best that they can. I'm also concerned about the safety issues. If we have a serious accident in there, there's going to be we're going to have a hard time getting fire engines or ambulances through that area. That's already been the case when the fire was there. So, you know, as a person that supports people with disabilities, that area is hard to get to. Round Cove is not an easy area to get through by the public. My car gets scratched on both sides. It's hard for some of us that don't have a big giant SUV or whatever it is to drive through there. So I'm all for more access into that area, and I think if we all work together, we can come up with some solutions.
Thank you.
Board, I've been mentioned a couple of times tonight, the department has, and we can get in and out of there just the way it is. It is a dirt road, and whether the county owns it, whether the U.S. government owns it, whether Harwich owns it, if we have an area of any unpaved road that we can't traverse, simple call to the DPW, and they'll fix that individual pothole, because that's public safety, and we have jurisdiction. That area around Cove and Hawks Nest Road, this discussion tonight is out of my realm. This is kind of a business meeting to me. As far as public safety and public access, we have access. And if those folks in there, I don't want anybody to be afraid. If you need help,
whether it be for an ambulance or a fire truck. We have been in there, and we will continue to get in there.
Thank you, Chief.
One last statement from myself. I spoke with somebody from the state who isn't allowed to speak for the state, but in speaking to his superior, he says this is a town issue and not to be getting involved with it. That the state park doesn't have the manpower to get in there, and they're not looking to make any improvements in the state park end of it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Manfredonia. I live on Harriman Heath Road. I've been here since the 80s and have walked in Hawk's Nest forever. When you go through there in the winter after a snowstorm, you can't believe the difference in the acoustics. It is just marvelous. You have to go there. And Mr. Freitas, no one denies you owning that property. Build your buildings, put up your homes. That's fine. But leave everything as it is so we still can enjoy it. And let the people that you sell to enjoy what they're buying.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that wants to speak?
May I say one thing?
Sure.
When we went to get the subdivision paperwork, the meetings for the subdivision, we were required to widen the road. We didn't ask, can we widen the road? We'd love to have a nice big road there. We were told we had to widen it. We widened it to the point, there's to the width that it needs to be, 18 feet? I don't know, whatever it is.
It's widened more than 18 feet because the utilities have to have 5 feet on the right-hand side.
And when you're widening a road, you can't just like, well, here's a tree, and just cut between it. You need to clear off so that there's drainage. I mean, that's how you do a road.
I understand what you're saying, and again, that's why you had a planning board process and a licensing.
We didn't do anything that we weren't told we needed to do.
To be clear, I understand that. When you have a
Okay,
license.
well, I don't think anybody else in here understands that, and it's just starting to get a little bit upsetting. I'm sorry.
Okay, so again, we're gonna limit the conversation to what you're here in front of us for, which is to request that the town take on T-basing.
Well, we thought that.
Excuse me.
Well, I was required.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
We've gone through this before, and I'm gonna ask you respectfully to let me finish speaking. And when I go back to you, you can speak. I'm also going to open it up to the board for further discussion. So currently, we understand that there's a license agreement in place permitted by the planning board. Currently, that license agreement has not been completed as it was permitted. So there's really no more discussion to add to that part, which is the map we're looking at here. So I think at this point, we can close the public hearing and go to the board.
Sure.
Oh, can I just say one more thing?
Last thing.
I mean, I was required to widen the road for safety. If I could have just left it alone, I would have saved thousands and thousands of dollars.
I understand that, but that is
And
part of the development process.
If there's safety's involved, how come Round Cove Road isn't required to be safe?
So again, we're gonna go back to the fact that you have a license agreement granted to you by the planning board, and that is according to the rules and regulations of the town. So we're gonna end the public hearing
Okay,
and
but
open it to the board.
But that's not.
So I'm
hold
ending,
on.
I'm ending the public hearing, and we're opening it now to the
I'm
board.
just saying that everybody else
okay.
is speaking.
So I'm gonna ask for a point of order.
Okay, fine,
Thank you.
all right.
Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Thank you.
Or second, doesn't matter.
You second it?
Either way.
Okay.
Either way.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, I'll go to the board. Anyone want to start in particular? You want me to go, Larry? I'll start with you.
I'm not sure how much I want to start, but I appreciate everyone being here. This is a great group, and I appreciate respectful discussion. We mentioned St. Peter's Church. They had a great sign a few weeks ago about love everyone. God will sort it out later, which I thought was good. My initial concern about this, and you brought a lot of perspective to me that I didn't have on this meeting. My initial concern was more of the procurement. because T-base is not free as applied in initial discussion, we have to buy the T-base because we use more than we need. And in my mind, if we were to use T-base on this project, we should treat it the same way we treat dredging sand, which we put that out for bid, and people bid on that product. And to have this go out just individually and have it treated as free, I objected to. And that doesn't count DPW's time, which also is not free. That's labor and time. So that was my concerns with that. I think our fire chief has answered some of the safety concerns. The question that keeps coming up in discussions from Mr. Freitas and you are what property is this? And I think Jerry may have answered that. That did go to town meeting, but since the town didn't accept it, that is not a town road at this time. And I'm reminded, I think, my timing is bad. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Chris, you can help me out, or Ed, because they were here then, I think, where the Board of Selectmen voted a policy to not accept additional roads as town property. And the reason for that was that
2006.
2006 it's been.
Just before my time then, but the reason is that you accept a town road and that becomes expensive to maintain. And we have, as we heard last week, we have a lot of concerns about, as Margot, about costing, so that's another obstacle to this. Just reviewing my notes. The planning board did approve these, and they did force you to do some things you're saying it wasn't possible. But one thing that was a requirement of that, which I'm not sure why it circled around, was that asking gravel and whatever T-base was to be at your expense and not at the town's expense. And so I'm unsure why that then even came back around and trying to go back to the town. I'm just reviewing some of my notes, but I think that we've had our questions answered, and I appreciate the concerns. I would find it very hard to move ahead with this with my financial questions I had initially and then concerns of the neighborhood at this point. So those are my...
Thank you, Larry. Michael?
So I also want to thank everyone that's here. I think it's refreshing to see how many people enjoy that as much as I enjoy it there. My questions from or comments from the very beginning are everybody in town should be able to use that. It's a beautiful piece of land, and I think that everybody that pays taxes in the town of Harwich and anyone from the state that wants to come enjoy that park should be able to use it. Hearing the concerns of everyone here tonight on the environment, as well as everyone that signed these petitions, I'm down to the only question I have is the legal question that I don't think we've had the answer to yet. The legal question pertaining to Round Cove Road only. How wide does it have to be? And is there a legal requirement to the town to maintain that to a certain width and a certain height? That's my only question.
Do you have any answer to that, or does Link have any answers?
Yeah, and I think to Round Cove, I mean, I read through the material, and just to be a little bit more clear, if it's a cart path, and the standard to me seemed to be that we have to maintain it as passable. In this case, it's not just a cart path, it's a request to have it be developed for development purposes. So it's a different standard that's being sought. But I think to the point, whether it's a county road or a town road, if it's in its current state, our only obligation is to maintain it in that current state. And as Chief pointed out, to make sure it's passable for emergency vehicles. So the request is, a little bit above and beyond what's being sought than what's required for the board to take for the action on the streets that's up there or the roads that are up there.
Thank you, Chris.
If I can
Michael?
I don't feel like I got an answer, and I'm not, at this point, I'm not sure I would support this regardless. But I'd like to get a legal opinion, Chris. I think you just called it a cart path. It's called Round Cove Road, and the town owns Round Cove Road. Not talking about Seth Whitefield, because we did pave up till the last house at one point not too long ago. So is it a road that we are required by law to maintain to a certain width? And I would like to get a real answer to that by somebody that can answer.
You received a real answer. You didn't receive a legal answer because I'm not an attorney. But we can get a legal answer.
Well, the real answer would be the legal answer in my mind. Thank you.
Ed? Do you have any comments or questions?
Well, since I've been living here in Harwich, when we first moved to town, we had a Jeep Wrangler, and we used to drive up into Hawksness Road. The lower portion hadn't been widened, and over time, we're now down to a Honda, a Toyota Prius, and my truck, and I find it both those roads as they exist now are passable in both those vehicles, including going from Round Cove up Hawksness to Spruce Street. So, if you can make it through in a Toyota Prius with about 4 inches of clearance, it's a passable road in my mind.
Thank you, Ed. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make a couple of notations here. Margot's a little bit self-effacing in this whole situation. A lot of us work really diligently to try to get this district of critical planning going. Margot was the executive director of the Cape Cod Commission when that happened. We were trying as hard as we could to protect the area, as Dan put it, a kind of perversion of wordplay from improvement. I'm not sure how much you can improve on what God did, but from my perspective, I have a little bit more perspective from the 30 years I was serving on the board from 2000. That policy came into effect when I was chair in 2006. We were trying not to pave the whole place over. It would be frightening to me if we decided that we were going to start upgrading every cart path and ancient way in this town. What are we going to do? Pave over the Punkhorn? I mean, this is just ridiculous. Somebody who's got money at risk, and Mr. Freitas has been doing this for many years since the Belmont Gardens projects. If you have money at risk, it's up to you to put that money into play and do something to make it work. The rules, the roads, everything existed before you were trying to do this development. If you want to, then it's incumbent upon you to do certain things. I voted against that license agreement. You didn't honor it. It's not done. Why would we expect that we have to do more things as long as that road's passable, as long as we can enjoy it? And you can't bring Bell's Neck into this thing, because that was done at a time where people thought it was a cool idea to dump their excess oil down their backyard. We know more now. We don't do these things now. So why would the T-base, when it hardens, actually has the properties of asphalt? It has runoff. It's not permeable. It doesn't act like soil or gravel. I mean, I'm not even sure why we're even considering this absent any engineering for the runoff. The fact of the matter is, this is a very, very fragile area, and for 4 people, I'm not willing to vote to pave the whole place over. It's perfectly passable. Ed's right. I've been down it. I had a Volkswagen Beetle that went down it. As far as I can see, it's there. Unless you want to take every national park in this country and start paving them over so that you forget why it was you protected them, I'm not in for this. I'm not in for voting for this, and I don't think anybody else should be either.
So currently, all board members have spoken. I will weigh in my 2 cents as well, which is, we do have a license agreement that's in place that hasn't been completed. We have sensitive areas that I'm very familiar with, the 100-foot buffer and all the regulations that apply there. I'm also very familiar with the fact that various towns are looking at improving the stormwater runoff regulations in their town to be in accordance with the state as well. And so, we're next to a state resource. It's part of our town, but we have those concerns as well. And we certainly have granted you a license agreement. So I don't know if anyone has a motion that they want to make, or if we should just table the discussion. Ed?
Well, I think Selectman McCaskill asked that an opinion be gotten, and I think we should go on with that. I also think that we ought to have staff review what's occurred with the recent work done on Hawk's Nest, measure the widths, and review the work that's been done, given all of the requirements that we have, including the requirements that were mentioned, imposed by the Six Ponds DCPC, and see where we are before we even consider authorizing any other work, and I'd so move.
Go ahead, Tom.
I appreciate what Ed's trying to do, and I would imagine that we could do that afterwards, but I just as soon make a motion that we deny the work.
So,
That would be just that simple, deny the work.
I would
The
second
town's work.
Don's motion at this point, because we still have to do the things that Ed asked for
Absolutely.
to complete the record.
for the license.
But there's no sense dragging this on. This is what, our third meeting?
Right.
At this point? You know, we can't do this forever.
So we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, unanimous. Right? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to participate in the public hearing. We appreciate it. Yes?
I just want to ask one question. If you're going to get a legal opinion on whether you have to maintain the town road, can you have that opinion on Hawk's Nest too?
At this point, the request is...
Just Round Cove is what I
Round
heard.
Cove, right. That's the request.
It's the only one we have as a public road, the others aren't used as public road. I asked Leon, they're not on the
I just don't see, I mean,
Yeah.
if I get a legal opinion on a town road, what's the difference between the two towns? That's my
Well,
own-
technicality is whether or not that's a town road,
Right.
so...
That's the
Ra-
first thing that we gotta determine is if it's either a town road.
Right, so currently it stands with Round Cove.
You can get a legal opinion on Hawk's Nest?
Currently the request is for Round Cove Road.
I heard Round Cove. The board.
Round Cove Road is what we're looking for the
Hawk's
opinion.
Nest is not on our road inventory according to Lincoln. It's
Right.
not on the Chapter 90
It's not on,
list.
right. So we're going for Round Cove Road is where the opinion's coming on.
Can you ask him for one on Hawk's Nest?
Can't vote it now anyway.
It's, the request is for Round Cove Road. That's what we report. Thank you.
I think what they're saying is they can prove that Seth Whitefield and Hawks Nest is even our road first.
Okay, so if you could take the discussion. If you could take the discussion outside unless you're here for the next agenda item, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Very good, Julie.
I love that. She's been waiting a whole year to hit that thing on the table.
Do it with
All year.
authority.
Now tonight she's done it 4 or 5 times.
And how did it feel?
I love that.
All right, ad hoc Harwich Port Parking Committee, presentation of recommendations for parking option in Harwich Port area.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. I am Alexander Donahue. I'm a member of the Harwich Port Ad hoc Parking Committee, members of the board. The first meeting we had was on the 8th of January, 2019. We have 5 members currently on the board. Myself as a resident member, Michael Ulrich as a business member, John Mahan as a resident member, Cindy Williams of the, she's executive director of the Harwich Port Chamber of Commerce, and Charlene Greenhalgh, town planner. There are 2 vacancies still on this committee, which it's my understanding they will be filled in a relatively short period of time. The committee met 9 times. Neighbors were invited, provided presentations. Many thoughtful discussions were held. The police, the fire department, DPW were also invited. We had a meeting with also the local bus company. After careful consideration at this time, the committee makes the following recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. We recommend that the entrance to the municipal lot, the following signs be placed: the universal sign of parking, which is the letter P, white P on a blue background. with arrows on both sides, so coming from the east and west, that the operators of motor vehicles will be able to see them easily, as well as at the back of the lot on the Pleasant Street entrance and exit. Regarding the employee parking, the newer parking area is known as TD Bank Extension. Lot to be signed also, and to read employee parking. There's approximately 35 spaces in that particular area. The chamber will notify the Harwich Board business of this location. The final recommendation is no beach parking at both Route 28 side of Pleasant Street, and in order to educate the community, the chamber will be having wayfinder signs with location of parking. The information will also be on the town website, the Harwich Chamber of Commerce website, at the community center, especially during the issuance of the beach stickers. After 5 p.m., both Cape Cod 5 and TD Bank have generously offered, in a partnership with this community, parking will be allowed in their specific lots. This summer will be a learning experience, and we will want to reconvene with the Board of Selectmen to discuss the monitoring which will assist the board in whether the signage has been functional this season. We would like also to recommend utilizing one and a half positions with the Park Rec Committee, attendant rather, and with assistance on this. We need a baseline when these signs are implemented as to whether we're achieving some of what we would hope to achieve. This committee is going to continue for another year and a half, as I see it, to 2020. During that period of time, we'll have 7 members on the board, and this is the first step in multiple steps, and we need to be able to have some determination as to whether this is actually going to be somewhat of an influence on reducing parking problems. Then we will be looking at additional areas of parking, because as we've said before, and not to beat a dead horse, the town is growing. It's a good thing, but there are some issues that have to be addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? And thank you for all the time that you've put into the committee. We appreciate that as well. Questions from the board?
I'll start that this time. Start with Don and Al.
You want me to start with Don? Don?
The other Larry.
The other Larry.
Not so much a question. Michael and I have done some interviews. We were prepared to bring one name forward. Apparently didn't make it for this agenda, but we're close to being able to populate this. But I don't have any questions at the moment. Larry will.
Ed?
What would be the purpose of the 1.5 positions?
The reason for this is we need to have a baseline as to whether cars are being still parked in there, even though the new sign will indicate no beach parking. So the board's going to have, excuse me, some method, which might be the marking of wheels, checking the lot every hour, hour and a half, to determine if the cars are actually there for extended period of times, and the assumption being is they are using it currently for the beach. Just to give this whole process some significance, we'd have to have some data, as limited as it might be, to make some determinations where we're going to go with this. Follow me?
Yeah, you could probably statistically do that by, doing a couple of Tuesdays, a couple of Thursdays, and just doing a time study on those, because I don't know if the Youth and Rec can afford position and a half for the entire summer.
That's
Yeah.
entirely up to the board as to how you would wish to carry that out.
Chris?
Just, Madam Chair, we did, staff had an internal meeting, I think at the last session that we had talked about this before town meeting. We had talked, and I said I would go through. So we are in agreement. I think the rationale that we were kind of looking at is to have the parking attendants just kind of cover the lots, kind of just look and maybe do some courtesy flyering that next year. You know, it may not be, there may be restricted parking in there. So I had it more viewed in terms of kind of getting them geared up to have that as a lot that they may cover in the future, and maybe do a little bit of education, maybe a little bit of data collection. But that was the idea for this summer, just to kind of give people a heads up that changes may be coming.
Thank you, Chris. Michael, do you have any other questions?
Well, I think doing some flyering, if it turns out that few people are following the signs, is good. But I think, personally, I think it'd be very worthwhile, at least at the beginning of the summer, to concentrate on some data collection so we get a good handle on what happens.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Ed. Michael?
No, I just want to extend a thank you to you, Al, and the rest of the committee. You did an awful lot of work. We appreciate, we realize this is a good compromise for now and just a starting point. So thank you.
Larry?
I agree with all that. Tough committee, and you guys did a good job, and we have to start somewhere. We're not going to solve everything tonight. I also agree with Ed that we need some data going forward. This is the beginning, and I think data collection is important. I would suggest that there's some, for people that do see parking long periods, obviously beachgoers, you come up with a posting to say, you know, this is for beach only, to remind them. So strengthen the educational, there's something is looks more factual than just educational.
Thank you, Larry. Michael?
Just to expand on what Don said, we have other interviews. So we interviewed 4. We're bringing 1 name forward now, but we have other interviews, and we're not going to appoint another person until after those interviews.
All right,
Thank you.
very good. May I turn my microphone over, please?
Sure. And Cindy, Dawn had a follow-up.
Yeah, Al, this is a follow-up to what Michael was saying. You're up and running. You've got some familiarity with the problem. You've been meeting with each other. When we add the 2 members, what we're really hoping for ultimately this time around is using that background information and trying to get something reported to us by the fall. Because if it involves us incurring any kind of expenses, we got to get to the point where we can put it on the town meeting warrant. So this is kind of misaligned for that. It's a good start, but if we get something in the fall, we can actually assure you that you have the possibility of funding.
Yes, thank you. The idea on this portion of it was to have the least amount of expense being incurred by the town until we can get some information and then move forward with recommendations, probably greater recommendations for parking in the future.
But if we use shuttle buses or anything that's going to cost us money, we need to be able to know that we can rely on something. You can't do it right now because we just passed through town meeting and we don't have that money.
Chris?
Madam Chair, just one thing on, I would like to have, last time the board had a discussion and there was no real direction, so if the board's okay with these interim measures, but I think that there are longer term measures that if we could have that information by the fall, so we can plan accordingly, would be very helpful. Just one thing, I thought it was an interesting note, the folks from Chatham Valet had shown up for kind of how they have valet services over there. That actually, they pay the town, so it's not something that is a town cost. So I may try to track down some of the materials that they did for their RFP and maybe bring that back for the board to present. Probably not for this summer, but to kind of have that also geared up for next.
And any kind of ticketing or anything that, if you were to move to that, would require public hearings and zoning changes?
Well, we'd have to change the, there's
next year,
currently
I
no
mean.
restrictions on the
Right.
parking, so we'd have to have some kind of hourly restriction.
Cindy?
Just to jump in, Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber. One of the things, we just want to make sure that everyone did hear, because Al was very soft-spoken, getting everything that we had come up with. The no beach signs, those are advisory signs. That was one of the things that we all agreed was one of the challenges with the parking. So we want to make sure that everyone is aware that there will be no beach parking signs at the front and the back. And as you've all agreed, this is a starting point. One of the things, as everyone, Al mentioned, and Mr. Clark did, the chamber will be watching this. I will be spending 7 days a week coming June 10th doing the beach stickers, and we will be making sure that everyone does know. I have a meeting next week with our volunteers. They all come back because next weekend is Memorial Day weekend. They will have a script of exactly what can be said and how we're going to educate everyone. So we will be trying our best to collect as much data as we can to then regroup with the committee in the fall to say, okay, this is what we know. But thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to?
Bob Cohn, Pleasant Street. Madam Chair, board members, I think I speak for my neighbors on Pleasant Street, Cross and Miles, in saying that we're very happy with the outcome of what the parking committee's done. And I want to take the time now to thank a number of people, starting with you guys. It was a great job of you guys to recognize the need for better planning and management of parking and making the decision to create the planning committee, or parking committee. The committee's plan looks like it's going to work, and our neighborhood's happy to have the wooded lot spared. I believe the no parking signs should work. My neighbor across the street works at the little library down at the bottom of Bank Street, and they have a lot of no parking signs. They're right on Bank Street, but they don't have beach parking problems. They do have parking problems with employees from Member. I believe at the last meeting, Deputy Considine mentioned that he thought that the no beach parking signs would also work. The parking committee created a forum for open public dialogue and collaboration and made us, the neighbors, feel that we were included in being listened to and in discussions that directly affected us. Looking back at where we were almost a year ago versus where we are today, I believe the committee is a great example of how town government should work. So thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the parking committee, of course, Mr. Donahue, Ms. Mahan, Mr. Ulrich, Ms. Greenhall, and Ms. Williams for all their great work. We all know it's kind of tough to find parking in Harwich Port without stepping on people's toes, but that's exactly what they did. So hats off to them for actually accomplishing this. The committee listened to us, the residents, sometimes at length. They also heard us and responded to us. They didn't give us everything we wanted, but they were fair and reasonable people, and they worked with us. The plan they've put together seems like it should work pretty well. It may not be perfect, but they have plans to tweak it over the next year or two. So that's great. The shared parking in the bank lot is really promising. I believe it almost doubles the capacity after 5 of the municipal parking. And hopefully it'll be a centerpiece for parking in Harwich Port in years to come and a model for what we can do with additional shared parking as we need new parking. I think Ms. Williams deserves a special recognition for a lot of the heavy lifting behind the scenes and working with the business community, and especially in bringing the bank lots in. So thanks to her too. And finally, I'd like to thank the business community for playing along and working with the parking committee, and in particular, the 2 banks, Cape Cod 5 and TD Bank. Extremely generous. What they've done is not only to help the business community, but to help residents as well by relieving the pressure on us. So they've done a great job, and we're really appreciative. I would suggest, and I know there are issues with signage in town, so I may be speaking out of turn here, but it would be nice if we could recognize the generosity of the banks, perhaps in putting up a sign at the entrance to the lots saying that this is how the lots work. After 5, anyone can park here, with grateful appreciation from the town to the 2 banks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank you for thanking everybody, because that doesn't happen very often. So.
Actually, one more point. Mr. Cohen just brought up a great idea, and that maps, I had to wait until tonight to even get the maps done. But what we can do is we print probably about 3,000 maps. I'll make sure that's on the maps to thank them.
Thank you, Cindy. great idea. You don't need us to take any, or
I
do
think
you?
it'd be good to have
You want us to take
just
an action? Okay.
confirm that you're okay with the report.
Got a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd move that we concur with the report of the parking committee and ask that the town staff implement the signage.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. We do truly appreciate all the work and effort on everybody's behalf, because it's not an easy undertaking, but at least we're headed in the right direction. Thank you. Okay, new business. Request by Sarah Gustafson to plant a perennial garden by the back door at Town Hall for pollinators for the bee population for a Girl Scout Gold Award project. Is she here? Do we know?
Madam Chair, I don't see her here, but nonetheless,
It's a commendable goal.
Yeah,
I'd like
I
to
mean-
move that we approve development of a perennial garden at the back door of Town Hall for pollinators.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
We have a description. Chris, can you just comment on your review of this? There's no obstacles or concerns?
No, actually, it's kind of an interesting request that I think we had a town staffer who had vegetables back there for a longest time. So we don't use that plot, and just in terms of reference, it's a little plot that's obviously dirt that's behind here, Town Hall by the entranceway. We have a lot of pavement back there, so I just want to, and to have something in there that would be aesthetically pleasing, I think is a nice idea.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed, correct? Proposal to modify the bylaw seasonal hourly wage by adjusting the title intern and a possible vote.
I'm going to defer to Bob. He worked on this.
We found, and when the town was hiring an intern, that there is no space for that particular position, so the simple request is that on the seasonal wage schedule under grade 3 is probably to add the word intern, and pretty generic, and then if an intern is hired over the next several months, the person could be slotted in that category.
Thank you. Is there any other questions, comments? Can I get a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd move that we authorize the establishment of the term intern in the wage, is this the seasonal wage schedule?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Vote to approve request for transfer from the reserve fund for Recreation Department. Chris, do you want to, or is somebody
Yes,
here from-
so Madam Chair, we had a meeting, folks from administration with the Mariners, Harwich Mariners, in regards to White House Field. And it kind of came to my attention that at the end of last season, some of the lights kind of went out, so we identified, or they identified to us, an electrical problem. Obviously, with the season coming up, we'd like to see if we can get the situation looked at. I just want to say, the funding in the budget, they had some work done at the end of last season. I think it was like 12 to 15,000 is what they spent, and they only did kind of temporary. There probably will have to be more extensive work done on it, but the idea behind this is to go in and look at the electrical and see if we can identify problems. I think Sean is in the meeting here tonight, so if there's any specific questions in regards to the electrical, but we had several rows of the lights go out, so they weren't playing at the really suggested level of candlelight that they're supposed to be playing at. So I think doing this work and scheduling this work ahead of time and trying to get them in to see if we can make some improvements makes some sense. But it's not a permanent fix. This would be a kind of a fix, hopefully, to get us through the season with less incidents than we had last year.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from the board?
My confusion, I guess, when I read this, the amount requested is $20,000, is that?
Up to 20,000.
Up to 20, and the balance is a little over 36?
Yes.
So the source of the rest of the funds will be?
This would be a reserve fund transfer. So we're seeking.
I thought reserve fund we don't have this much money in reserve fund,
We
right?
have about $30,000 left,
What's the current balance referred to
about
then?
30,000 in the
Cur-
reserve fund.
What's the current balance referred to then?
I don't know if
Are you
I'm
following
following
me?
you. Oh, the reserve fund balance, the current balance that's referenced is actually in the account in the recreation account for lights.
Okay, so it's not the reserve fund itself.
Yeah, this request would be for the reserve fund, so in total, we would have 23,000.
Okay. Then why do I seem to have like 6 copies of the same,
It's 15, actually.
I can't count.
Well,
How come I
was-
have so many
We
copies
were
of the
hoping to
same
bring it to
document?
FinCom and have FinCom at their next meeting take it up, so we just had extra copies.
I
to-
kept looking for some difference.
Yeah, no, it's
I did
all
the
the same request.
It's a
I
trick.
only got through 6,
They
but
went a little,
It was a trick.
they went a little haywire, I guess.
I did do the exact same thing, I gotta admit it.
Just one
Michael?
request for 20,000 for the
So
lights.
the normal process is to get a vote from the Board of Selectmen and then Finance Committee?
no.
Yes, we do both.
And then what's the, if this happened last year, why wasn't this planned for? And where does the money normally come from for this account?
Last year, it came from Recreation. I think when the Harwich Mariners came to me about a month ago, they raised this as an issue, that's something that we should look at before the season.
Okay, and then I guess the other question is on the Town of Harwich request for transfer from the reserve fund, top left-hand corner, it says FY 2016.
Yeah, old form.
Maybe we should deal with that.
Any other questions, comments? No?
Madam
Taking
Chair? I'd move that we approve the request for transfer from the reserve fund to recreation in the amount of $20,000.
Subject to the approval of Finance Committee.
Yes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Vote to approve the recommendation of the town administrator, approved dog order for a hearing held on April 25th, 2019. Chris?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm going to make a kind of something I don't think I've done in a while, make a request that we actually hold off on this.
Okay.
I received information today. We did do a dog hearing. I believe the dog owners are present. And the animal control officer had made the suggestion that, it's a good dog, but maybe not the right dog for the owners. And I think the owners did hear that. And what I received today from the animal control officer is that they have found another home for the dog, and the dog is moving to Rhode Island. So I think that I may have to do an addendum to the request, because I would hate to have something on file. If the dog is no longer in state, then, we have an obligation under Mass General Law to forward any decision, because it goes statewide. But I think where the dog is in Rhode Island, I think I'd like to find a little bit more material, and I may make a change to the recommendation based upon the updated info.
Don?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we table the recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Never needed.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Vote to, Finance Director's performance evaluation performed by Town Administrator, vote to confirm.
So, Madam Chair, in the employment contracts for the fire chief, finance director, and police chief, it has a requirement in there that the town administrator does the review. Each of those 3 positions, and obviously as well as myself, fall under the direct purview of the Board of Selectmen. So I did complete the review on Carol and Carol Coppola, the finance director. Let me just see. It was a favorable review. I think Carol does a great job for the town. She received a score on a 100-point scale of 91, so she received a favorable score. I think what's anticipated in the contract, the employment contract with her, is that once a favorable score is received, that the Board of Selectmen vote to award the cost of living adjustment that would go into effect as of 7/1 of 19 in this case.
Thank you. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know who actually wrote the evaluation for each of the employees, but it really doesn't matter to me, because ultimately, I'd like to have one more week for us to, either change what it is or confirm what it is, because we don't even have the blank forms to be able to pull that off right now. It's our evaluation, they're direct hires.
Chris?
Yeah, actually, under the board's agreement with the various people that I mentioned, the board makes a determination. It does use the evaluation that administration does, that I do, and I do them personally in this case. And then if the board wants to make any changes, we did have a little bit of miscommunication, so on Friday, I wasn't able to get hold of you in a timely fashion, more my part, because I was involved in a meeting. So the staff did not put any of the material in the agenda. So I would recommend that the letter of review go in the packet for public consumption, and then the board, it's my understanding, did get the town administrator's evaluation on the employees in your confidential package. But if you want time to review that, I think that's appropriate under the circumstance.
We did get that. Don?
We're not there yet on the agenda. I was just talking about the other direct hires. I'd like to have the extra time to be able to review. I personally was interested in a couple of categories of increasing their evaluation. So, and I don't believe in the people's court kind of stuff where we get something and we in real time reevaluate it here at a meeting. I'd like to be able to have the actual blank form.
I don't think I'm following.
We did put the score, we put the form in there. That's why I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm
But they're not,
But-
we have
but
no
they-
mechanism to submit them right, tonight.
Nevertheless, I know I was gone from Friday until last night. I would like another week to just review them.
That's what I'm saying.
Michael?
I'd like to get some clarification on what we talked about prior to the meeting, Chris and I. I've gone back through the packets over the last 4 years that I've been involved, and maybe I'm completely blind, but I cannot find where we put performance evaluations, the detail, in a public packet. And if we had done that, and you can show me the date, then I'm fine with it. If we haven't done it, I'd like to get a written legal opinion, that it's okay to put this personnel piece for staff in the public forum. If there's questions to be asked, then we can ask them. But I have never seen the public document, never seen the performance document of an employee put into a public packet. The town administrators, which we went over in length a few years ago, and I can remember some of those performance evaluation, and we had all wished it wasn't a public forum that we had to discuss that in, but in fact it is on the town administrator. I don't believe that we are supposed to put employees' performance evaluations in the public packet. So I'd like that clarified. Whilst we have both department heads in the room tonight, and I would agree with Don that I'd like to look at it, because these two particular employees, and I don't really want to single them out, Carol Coppola, Finance Director, has given us more information than I've ever received this year, and has gone above and beyond to give the public charts and to give the public the financial information and show transparency that we've always asked for. So the 91 isn't enough, in my opinion. Norm Clark, the fire chief, and I've said this time and time again, he's one of the department heads that's at everything. He attends every public event that we have, always with a smile on his face, and he always has some fun things to say at the podium. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't. But Norm goes above and beyond for the town of Harwich, both in his duties as fire chief, but also as a resident of town of Harwich. And I think, the 90 that he got, I would bump that up as well. So thank you both for being here tonight. Sorry about the confusion on the packet. I'll oblige Don and Larry and wait a week to do that, but thank you both while you're here.
Ed?
I'm not quite sure I understand what the confusion on the packet was, because when I opened up my packet Saturday night, the performance evaluations were in it. They were in the where they should be in the confidential section
So
for us to review.
Right, but they originally were not, so I had to make that request to the office, and I was trying to touch base with Chris, and I couldn't get in touch.
And
so
when,
That was Friday.
that was Friday, okay.
That was Friday. So I asked to put them
Oh,
in
you
the
know,
confidential
yeah.
packet, yeah.
I guess my point is I don't want this to be a pro forma activity, that we
Sure.
actually review it and spend a little bit of time on it, because we've all said that, you know, our input would probably all be positive, but I think I don't want it to just be a pro forma activity.
Well, originally, the intent too was to say we would have it in the confidential
Right.
packet, review it, have it on the agenda, but then bring it back on the 20th. So we can certainly do that.
Yeah,
Chris?
I will get a formal legal opinion. I had the attorney, I was talking to him just before the meeting. There was fairly recent case law in Wayland, and the Wayland decision, there's several decisions, I guess, out of Wayland. But just to be clear, that performance-related items only are subject for public discussion, and therefore is considered to be a public record in accordance with the public records folks. So that's pretty straight and clear, so we can get that. There's no intent to do anything to the employees, and just in perfectly honest, they both scored themselves in that range. And the one thing that I have kind of preached since the time I've been here is that all of us can have some room for improvement. So, you know, I applaud that they both gave themselves, I thought, reasonable scores and good scores, both very well deserved, and they both recognize, as I would, that there's always room for improvement. So no poor reflection at all in terms of, I think they both do a great job for the town.
No, understood. And I mean, it was only this evening that we were planning, I was planning on announcing that we were bringing it back, but then there was a question on whether or not we could go ahead tonight. So I was happy to go ahead tonight if we wanted to, but the intention was to come back, so. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to be really clear about this, anything that would have, I totally agree with Julie's comment about putting them in the confidential packet. The reason I do agree with that is those were not voted. We'll have a public discussion. We have, they were a counterpoint for us to look at, and then for us to arrive at whatever rating we wanted to individually, creating a composite rating, at which point there absolutely would be a public discussion, because we're going to have to vote to approve the rating. But it was somewhat precipitous to actually throw them in there. We'll get to the next comment later. I'll just leave it at there.
Chris?
Madam Chair, if the board wants to change the employment agreements call for the administrator to do the evaluations on the 3, and then the board gives the final score and the final recommendation in terms of the cost of living adjustment. So I'm just administratively doing what the board had agreed to. In my case, as administrator, I know we'll get to that, it's a different standard. So,
Yeah, to be clear, I was going to make that comment. I mean, in the past, they've been given to us and we've approved them. I have not in the past scored them. I mean, if there was an issue, but I haven't scored them. I don't think any of you have, well, any other board member I've served with has, right? That's what we get from Chris, and then we go forward. For Chris's evaluation, we score, but we don't score the chief, fire chief, the police chief, or finance director. I haven't.
They're direct reports.
I understand that, but we have not.
Madam Chair, out of practice, we have not, but that doesn't mean we cannot, because they're direct.
And I didn't say we could not.
Oh, no, I get
I'm
that.
just saying that we have not in the past. And so Chris's comment is, if we're going to change that, we need to make that clear.
But that
because we
wasn't
haven't
why
done
I
that.
raised my hand. I'm confused. At least a half a dozen times you've called them your rating, and at least twice you call them their ratings that they made out. Which is it?
Madam Chair, the process that I use is I have people do self-evaluations, organization-wide. So people do their own evaluations, and then I come in, we usually spend about an hour, hour and a half, and we go through the goals and objectives and the rating, and then I adjust, where I think adjustment is necessary, the final score. So I do a collaborative process, if you would, in terms of the performance evaluations on
Thank you for the clarification. So we're in agreement to bring it back next week, so we don't need to take any action. Okay. So just note that the same for the fire chief's performance evaluation performed by the town administrator, that we will bring that back again on 5/20 Monday, okay? Town administrator's performance review, performed by Robert Lawton, retired Yarmouth Town Administrator. And I want to make some clarification here, because it's been alleged on the social media page of Old Timers that I've received multiple requests for this to be placed on the agenda. And let me be perfectly clear, I have not. I've received a request from Michael one time, I think he'll agree with that. And I received an email from Dawn on Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock following town meeting. So just to be clear and for transparency purposes, this has been placed on the agenda as soon as it was supposed to be placed on the agenda. And we did the same thing last year. We did this after town meeting. So, Dawn?
And that's accurate. So I have no problem with anything that was said. What I was totally floored about is I didn't know that we asked for an evaluation from Mr. Lawton and this. And let me finish.
Yeah, I didn't say
At the
that.
floor. Moreover, he's not an official with 30 years' experience. He happens to be someone who's subordinate to you. I think that's a sweet deal. I'd like to have gotten my evaluations when I worked for the federal government by all my subordinates. It's irrelevant. It was supposed to be a self-evaluation. But more importantly, 51 weeks into the evaluation period, you cannot come up with new evaluation criteria. The whole point of a performance evaluation is to set the goals for the coming year that you can meet or that you might not meet. But doing them at the last minute, let's say we gave a really horrible rating based on the new criteria. You could easily go to a court and abrogate that, because the point is you had no foreknowledge about what it is you wanted us to do. I asked last May for some advice about what it would look like to get from 20 goals and objectives to 5 or 6. That would have been appropriate then, but it's wholly inappropriate now. We can't rate you on anything other than what we currently have, period. And that would be how I'm going to rate you. And I'm sure everybody's got some opinions, but we have never voted these new criteria. Never.
Chris?
So, Madam Chair, in the time that I've been the town administrator, I've basically used a similar process each time. And as I do with all the employees, and I have them do a self-evaluation, I have them do the self-evaluation, and then we discuss it. In this case, I would go through, the goals and objectives were the goals and objectives that were voted by the board, so that hadn't changed. I know that there was a lot of unhappiness last year at the document itself, the evaluation tool. So I did take it upon myself to update. I've had some discussions with staff, because I would like to update the form overall and have some discussions organization-wide. When I came on board 5.5 years ago, I brought those instruments with me, and I have not updated them. I'm perfectly fine, and really the intent is, instead of doing a self-evaluation on how I do business, I happen to have a tremendous amount of respect for Mr. Lawton, and what I thought I would do this year is, for my own personal benefit, if you would, and hopefully for the benefit of some members of the board, that to have an outside professional who does the same type of work that I do, that has, I think he's up to almost 40 years of experience with all the interim. He knows the town of Harwich, because he was asked to be the interim on other occasions as the administrator. I thought it was just a different perspective that some board members may appreciate, by, instead of having me score myself, to be scored by a fellow professional. It's not every day you get that opportunity. And I wanted to at least have the board. If the board wants me to go and score myself and present that, then I would do that. I think, quite honestly, I probably would score myself a little harder than than I was scored by Bob. But it was just a means to take a different approach. And really, I would hope the goal of a performance evaluation is to get improvement from employees, and to get some self-reflection on how we as an organization can improve and move forward. So I know that there was a lot of angst about the performance evaluation, so I did take a stab, and I thought, why not try myself as the guinea pig? So I put out the new form and graded myself through Bob on that for the board to consider. The board can use the old form. I have no problem with the old form. You can go through and do that. And probably just so people at home, there is a different mechanism for the administrator. The administrator, at least again, in my practice, I do a self-evaluation to give you a look at how I've done. In this case, I've had Bob provide that input, and then each individual board member can score their own. I think we made that available. I think I attached that material to the material I had sent out. And then it's up to the chair to accumulate all that and come up with a composite score. I was trying to get this done. I mean, we finished town meeting, and there's 2 meetings before the board changes over. And there was a request to have this material on for this board to evaluate my performance during the last year.
Thank you, Chris. Michael? You would have to go up to the podium, and actually, I'm currently having the board speak, so if you want to go to the podium and hold on. Michael?
So I guess first, contractually, Chris, every year we have the same conversation. Every year we do it in May.
Simple
contractually-
request.
Excuse me. I said if you want to wait at the podium, Michael McCaskill is speaking.
Wait at the podium
Right.
here.
Right.
Okay, got it.
So contractually, Chris was supposed to have it done by the end of April. I assume that you, like the last 3 years, are okay with us doing it now?
We actually modified the last one to say April into May before the town election, so we are still timely.
To Don's point on the contract, I mean, on the evaluation form, 4 years ago when I started this, we all hated the evaluation form. And then 3 years ago it was the same, 2 years ago it was the same, this year it's the same. But we also, every one of those years, agreed that we would take it back up and put it on the agenda and change it. Therefore, I'm not comfortable doing it on a new form that I haven't even read yet, so I am doing mine on the old form. And I think that the rest of the board should, because we didn't even look at this new form until now, when it was sent to us. So, the old form will be what I use. With all due respect to Bob Lawton, and Bob, I've said it over and over and over again. You've only worked with Chris for about 3 months this year. Chris hired you, so you are technically his subordinate. Every time you have been hired under Chris's tenure, it was by Chris, and the recommendation was, let's get Bob Lawton, which I wholeheartedly endorse, because you are great. But because of those reasons, I don't even want to look at the evaluation. And that's no disrespect to you at all. The process has been, Chris evaluates himself, the board evaluates him, the chair calculates the points, and then he either gets his cost of living increase or he doesn't. So adding this new element with no discussion from the board and from somebody that is a subordinate of his, I just can't support it. My evaluation is done. I have a little tweaking left. I think Julie had requested him by Tuesday night, if we could get him in by Tuesday.
Right.
But those are the reasons, Bob, that I won't support your evaluation of Chris. It hasn't been long enough, you haven't worked with him long enough, and there was some inaccuracies on part of the report in there that I found with a quick glance. So, no disrespect, but I'm not looking at it.
Larry?
Whoever I am, I'm the Don, I'm
Whatever your
Don
name is.
Jr. For me, I'm not too troubled by whether Chris does self-evaluation or Bob helps him out on that. Namely because that's a starting point, and we look at part of those, we disregard the things we disagree. The evaluation that counts is the 5 of us and how we view it, because that dictates how we perceive Chris's future going. And so, I reviewed, and I'll look at it and say, I looked at Chris. This is a baseline. Maybe interesting input, Michael, but I may ignore it, may not. My problem goes back, I'm still uncomfortable with the evaluation form, whether it's last year's or this year's, quite frankly. We do goals and objectives, and I struggle transferring the goals and objectives we have to that form. So I tend to go back to the goals and objectives and try to make comments, but they're more related to what we've asked Chris to do. And I can't believe over the years that we haven't figured out a way to have an evaluation that directly links to the goals and objectives we vote on, and we still don't. That should be our first priority going in, so we don't have this discussion. It's not rocket science, we can solve that. We may have to throw out the standard form and use our own form, which isn't the end of the world, by the way. We can do it and have an evaluation, but we need to solve that. That's the part that I'm concerned about. You know, I'll do my evaluation, and it's, you know, I'll use that, I may not use it.
Thank you, Larry. Ed, do you have any comments?
Well, I had no idea I was using a new form or old form, but I did it anyway, and quite pleased with it. On the self-evaluation, were listed the goals, and I had no problem really going through the different categories and looking at the goals and referencing how I scored based on things I had seen that had occurred with those old goals. So, but this will have been, well, not so much the 3 years I was county representative, but all the other years that I have been in elected office. I have never yet found an evaluation device that really is worth a crap. You just do the best you can, and actually the best part of the evaluation is what's done in actually a long narrative portion.
Thank you, Ed. I would agree. I find myself back here. We had the same conversation my first year on the board, second year, and here we are again. So I also, have participated in evaluations, self-evaluations, and been evaluated from there by various tools at various positions. I've never really found one either that accurately reflects my abilities or, even goals and objectives, and to your point, Larry, about trying to link them. I do think it's difficult. I don't know what is out there. There's got to be something better, but I don't know what it is. I personally don't have any problem looking at Bob assessing something, because I do think he brings a very valuable outlook to the overall position, and although I certainly understand that he is hired by Chris, and I think that we would all agree that he's an incredible asset, has a great insight. I do believe he's honest. I do believe that if he felt something wasn't being done properly, that would be reflected in the evaluation. So I appreciate the different approach, because technically nothing's been working anyway. Last year's didn't work, the year before that didn't work, and here we are. So overall, what I would ask is that you use the form. If the board wants to say that uniformly everybody's to use the previous form, I have an issue with that. I don't think Chris has an issue with that. Overall, I'm just asking that I get them by tomorrow night. So that's what I'm asking. And, okay, and you said you have yours done. Michael was almost done.
I have mine done as long as we don't use the old form. If we use the old form, I'm not sure I can finish it by tomorrow night, because I have an incredibly full day tomorrow.
Okay. Well, does
But,
anyone?
I'll get it by Wednesday noon. I have possibly a Coast Guard patrol tomorrow. It'll take some time.
Okay.
But, but to get back to the evaluation, it's not that, we could make it really simple. We could take our outline of goals and objectives and just say how we do on each of those.
But the only problem
Can you
is.
make a copy of that for me, because I haven't seen that yet?
Yeah, that's what we voted on,
It was
So
attached.
it was- I can, sure. I'll send it to you. But I
I
mean,
think we have it in the.
it's somewhere around. I mean, I found it today.
I think it's in
Uh,
here too. It got added
so-
later.
It's not part of the Excel sheet.
Not part of the Excel sheet. I'm just saying we could send it.
No, but the goals and objectives were added later, I think.
Yeah, I think it may have
Okay.
been added after.
But I'm saying, so, we can do it, yeah?
I mean, I'm happy to proceed.
But we'll do this. I'll fill out the form, one of the forms.
Okay. So just give me a phone. I mean, I really need them by Wednesday, because I'll be working full-time,
Right.
and I gotta calculate them, and I gotta
Yeah.
get them in for, really technically the cutoff is noon on Wednesday, but I
I'll get
could,
it by- I'll
I
get it
could
by
add
then.
it in on
I'll get it by
Thursday
then.
morning, so, okay. Thank you. Yes, sorry, you can go to the podium.
What you just engaged in was very important.
Excuse me, you have to identify.
Sebastian Woodry,
Thank you.
54 Smith Street, West Harwich. What you just engaged in was a very important discussion for the board, by the board, within the board. I'm confused. I'm just a townsperson, okay? I'm here to speak to an old business because Mary Albus asked me to come here. I don't understand why this is not held in executive session, because it appears that each of you need the privacy and the interchange, and I felt like I was eavesdropping on something that was not appropriate for the town.
It's actually.
Welcome to the open meeting law.
Yeah, it's part of the open meeting law, we're having a discussion, and the town administrator also earlier referenced the fact that, you know, by law, we're not supposed to keep these private.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That explains it. The second thing, someone may not know it, but they've got a squeaky chair, and if that's showing up on the microphone, they're going to be very embarrassed what it sounds like. I can hear it out there. This is being videotaped and recorded.
Thank you. Okay, so everybody's gonna get me theirs, but,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Thought it was my
So now we'll
arthritis.
go to contracts, agreements between the town of Harwich and Barnstable County for the dredging of Allen Harbor in the amount of $67,500. Authorize the chair to sign.
Madam Chair, move we approve contract with Barnstable County for dredging of Allen Harbor, amount of $67,500, and authorize the chair to sign
I'll
the
second
contract.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Agreement between the town of Harwich and CDM Smith for professional services, DHY, Dennis Harwich Yarmouth, assistance agreement, $50,000 per grant agreement. Authorize the town administrator to sign.
Madam Chair, move we approve agreement between the town of Harwich and CDM Smith for professional services on DHY assistance agreement of $50,000, and authorize the town administrator to sign.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Don?
I should just put this on an MP3 and play it back. This is really, at its essence, a sole source contract. Whether or not we are compelled to get competition is not really the issue. It's $50,000 and it's a contractual agreement. Once again, we don't have any cover letter on it saying that the town administrator recommends that it be awarded in this fashion. Once again, we don't have any legal review of this that may be pro forma to some people, but this is definitely going to be an evaluation kind of problem because this has been going on for 2 years. I keep asking for this information, and I'm not going to vote for this. Even though I know that he needs to be there as part of a facilitation for DHY, the real fundamental problem has yet to be resolved. And we continue to look foolish to the public because we continue to have questions about things after the fact that we could have resolved if somebody had vetted them and put their name on a piece of paper that said, I've looked at it, looks good, I recommend you go ahead with it. So I'm not voting for it.
If I may, my understanding is this is $50,000 grant we got as a DHY group. Now, your point about the contract, but it's not that we're not spending town money on this. It's able to enable the DHY regional committee to spend those funds. My question is, directed to Chris, is what's the CDM's Smith's budget for this work? Is it also $50,000, or is there expectation that there's further expenses down the road? In other words, I'd like to cap the $50,000. That's
Yeah,
the grant money.
Yeah, just in terms of, I didn't do a formal write-up on this because the board approved the last meeting, the grant that we received that clearly outlines the work that needs to be done. This is really a ministerial effort because 40,000 is for the 3 towns to assist in the negotiation. And as you pointed out, when we got the grant, and I appreciate you pointing that out, 10,000 is between Yarmouth and Barnstable to do their negotiations on elements of that. So we have a grant to do the exact scope of work that we then got a contract to do. And, you know, that's what's being requested tonight, is really for us to be the administrative agency to oversee a grant that we already signed off on behalf of the 3 communities.
Thank you, Chris. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If that were the case, then we wouldn't even need this, but that's not the case. This is a private vendor that we are giving a contract to, where there's a certain expectation of certain work, and we're asking you to sign this on our behalf and to approve it, which means it isn't pro forma. This agreement stands on its own. It's enforceable.
Chris, did you
I'm
have
not going to protract this, Madam Chair. It's an engineering contract, which is exempt from procurement law. We already have 2 other towns that have contracts and have as their vendor CDM Smith. It would be inconsistent for me to go against what the other towns have done, and it would also be inconsistent for me to go against the contract that, the grant contract that we received.
Thank you,
I'm
Chris.
not asking you to.
Can I get a motion?
You have one.
We have
Oh,
one
did
in
you?
a
Oh,
second.
sorry.
We need
Who
to
seconded it?
vote. I did.
Oh, thanks.
Larry,
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, 3 to 2.
3 to 2.
Sorry. Change order for fire station number 2 in the amount of $46,402.62. Approve and authorize the chair to sign.
Madam Chair, I'd move that we approve the change order for fire station number 2 in the amount of $46,402.62 and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Yeah, and,
But we want some discussion.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, we
Chief.
can have it now, after this.
Moved and seconded, but go ahead.
Okay. I have good news and I have bad news. Bad news is there's a change. The good news is it's going to be about $1,337.17 less.
Wow, that's nice.
That was a late.
What's the net?
I'm going to give you all a copy of that.
Well, he needs it for the motion.
Motion's already been made.
Thank you, Norm.
Thank you.
There you go.
Well, that's good news.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Ed.
That was your motion, wasn't it?
with the agreement of the seconder, I'd like to amend my motion to specify that the total change order is $45,065.45.
And I still second that.
Seconded, right? Don, still? Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, what?
I just want to hear the explanation.
Wow, you need the details?
Well, I'd like to see what changed.
Very simply, it referred to
I mean, I can read the
power,
document, but this-
you know, providing power for a refrigerator. We took great exception that when you break it down, that's for an outlet. So $1,300 for an outlet was caught and rejected.
I think he's looking for the
He means
45,000
the overall
in general.
cost.
I mean, did they,
You want to go down through the list quickly? Is that what you'd like to do?
just a general,
Sure. The
idea
first one is
of,
electrical changes.
yeah, why
Electrical
change at this
changes, the
point?
bulk of that is requirements from Eversource after the contract was signed. Eversource came in
course
when
it
they-
is.
for our power, and they changed the rules.
Okay.
So we had to pay for that.
Okay.
Blocking and soffit, I have no idea. That would be for my expert right here.
I don't, close enough. Go ahead, Norm. I'm not worried about $847 in this contract, but just a general.
Any other questions on these?
No, that should do it.
Majority of the change is because of Eversource's change after the power was run.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Which is not shocking, no pun intended.
Oh, 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 oh.
Anyway, I
Thank
cracked
you,
myself
Chief.
up. All right, so
Bad
moved
joke.
and seconded.
Bad pun.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Chief, from what I can see passing by, it's coming along fabulously.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
From what I see every day, it looks excellent. Okay, old business, continuation of Harwich Inn and Tavern outdoor entertainment license plan. And, is he gone? Oh,
No, he's still here.
He's there.
He's in the back.
okay.
She said
Madam
you
Chair,
should-
maybe we can get started with an overview, and then the applicant can
Yeah.
come
why
up.
don't you-
But the board had held off on the discussion in regards to the entertainment license for the music. And then on I think it was a couple Fridays ago, you and I had the opportunity to go out there. They did have the music playing, and we had the opportunity to walk across the street and see what was kind of clearly audible and what wasn't clearly audible. And then went back, had a discussion with the proposer, and made some recommendations. Certainly the first time, it was clearly audible. I think we knew that. Interesting how loud Route 28 was, too, which
Yeah.
I thought was interesting. But having the music played in a certain area and not directed to the north, which would be towards the affected neighborhood, at least from when we were out, did make a lot of sense and really did dull in the noise. And we went out probably midway in the morning, so the traffic wasn't super heavy. So it was a good opportunity to kind of hear, and it was definitively different.
Actually, it was like
Was it
1
maybe
o'clock,
1
so
o'clock?
it
So,
was,
yeah.
yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, there was traffic. Did you want to come up and give an Sure, that's fine, whichever you're comfortable with, it's fine.
And I just want to thank you for coming out. It was a productive meeting there. And I also wanted to assure everyone that I'd like to be judged on my actions and not relitigate the actions of others that aren't here anymore. And that there are many restaurants and bars that have outside entertainment, and they are judged on their performance, not of somebody else's. And that's all that I ask, if we can judge me on me.
Right, and just to clarify also that, you know, it has it in our packet that the proposed outside entertainment is noon to 8.
Yes, won't go past 8 o'clock.
Right, and just for the board to say that the plan that Mr. Tsoulis drew up shows that you can see the speaker next to the outside bar. It says outside bar. And then that will be pointing south. And so that means that if there's any kind of noise complaint, this assists with the police if they had to go, so.
Not facing north. I think
Right,
you
not
said.
facing north, well, which would be south.
You said, I think, facing south.
Well, technically not facing north, but it's pivoted so that when we
Yeah,
were
actually,
there.
right towards the building.
Yeah,
Towards the building.
sorry.
As you saw
Yeah,
it
it's for
with-
yeah, sorry. So ultimately, we didn't hear the noise carry beyond when we were there.
Right.
So that's just to give you all a perspective on whether or not you were able to go out, I'm not sure. Is there questions?
We're going to comment first.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not asking, I was asking the audience. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Mary Albus, Smith Street, West Harwich. Thank you once again for listening to the concerns of our neighbors. I'd like to make 3 distinct points, if I may. First of all, the sound tests that was conducted on site, though it's not required, we're surprised and a bit dismayed that neighbors were not invited to this sound test or even informed that it was occurring. My question is, what about open communication? There's been a lot of great communication here. Many, many hearings over the years. You've listened to our concerns, and yet To quote Mr. Tsoukalos, we had a very productive meeting and worked out a compromise proposal. Frankly, we feel left out. What a missed opportunity, an opportunity for all the neighbors and the Board of Selectmen and Mr. Tsoukalos to come together on site and to test this plan. And I feel like maybe we wouldn't be here tonight had we been invited to this and been part of this. So frankly, we feel a little bit disenfranchised, actually, honestly, a lot disenfranchised here. Even the owners of the former Claddagh invited us, the neighbors, to a sound test back in July of 2011. Mr. McManus and I were part of that sound test. It was on a Saturday. It was very busy. It was late afternoon. There was a band there. There were people milling about the pool area, and the bands were playing. They would ratchet up the volume, and I was on the cell phone with my neighbors, with Mr. Carney, who lives closest to the Harwich Inn and Tavern, Mr. Megason, who lives at the end of Mansion Street, and then my own husband on Smith Street. Do you hear it now? Do you hear it now? It wasn't very professional, but it was effective. It gave the owners a sense of how the sound was carrying and when it was carrying. And I believe Mr. McManus can, I don't know if you can remember, I believe there was also a southwest wind blowing from the southwest that evening, which would carry the noise into the neighborhood, which is the prevailing wind during the summer. So we felt that that was a positive step. I believe it was soon after that that the board asked the Claddagh to hire a professional sound engineer, because I think they realized that there were more issues here than just what we could do as people trying to come up with a compromise. The other thing is that, to me, a compromise is bringing all parties together and giving and taking, kind of giving in and saying, okay, I would like this, you would like this, let's talk about it. And I feel like for Mr. Tsoukalos to say a compromise proposal, I feel like we were left out of this compromise. And maybe I'm expecting too much, I don't know. My second point is that Mr. Tsoukalos has his indoor entertainment license now. And he has repeatedly stated that he's concerned that he can't make a go of his business or his business thrive without his outdoor license. Walk with me down Route 28 in West Harwich. Let's think about all the other restaurants and bars in West Harwich. We'll start with Jake Rooney's, which is probably the establishment that is maybe closest to the Harwich Inn and Tavern in terms of food served, entertainment. They have indoor entertainment. They have great food, great prices. They have a great following. Go there in January, the place is packed. They have dancing. They don't have outdoor entertainment. Walk down to Villa Roma. Villa Roma has a nice little patio outside. Could they have outdoor entertainment? Sure, they don't. Keep walking down. West Weatherdeck, okay? No outdoor entertainment. Irish Pub on the banks of the Herring River, okay? Huge outdoor area. They could have outdoor entertainment. They don't. And many, many years ago, way before 1998 when I moved to West Harwich, there were issues with the noise coming from the Irish Pub, indoor music. And the board decisively and quickly came down on them and said, you need to put in an air conditioning unit, you need to put in a sound barrier inside, soundproofing, and shut all your windows and doors. Since that time, we have never once heard the Cape Cod Irish Pub in our neighborhood, and that's probably the bar closest to our neighborhood. If you want to keep going, go down to Noble House, no outdoor entertainment. Vieira, relatively new business, no outdoor entertainment. So my point being, all of those businesses have been in business for a very long time, a very long time. They obviously thrive. They open year after year. They're crowded in the summertime. They're crowded in the off-season, say like Jake Rooney's. So my question is, those businesses thrive without outdoor entertainment. Why does Mr. Tsoukalos, who now has indoor entertainment, like all the other restaurants, why is outdoor entertainment even necessary? My third point, and my final point, is that I understand the occupancy limit set by the building department for the Harwich Inn and Tavern is 278 people. This was set by the building department and is enforced by the fire department. I don't know what the breakdown is. Would you happen to know how many people inside and how many people outside? I don't know if Mr. Tsoukalos has that information. Conservatively, I'll say 100 people inside. I don't know, he's not going to tell me right now. But that would put 178 people outside, 178 people. And the sound engineer from years ago, in his recommendation says, although noise from patrons milling about the parking lot or the patio during late night hours is not likely to exceed DEP limits, noise from speech is readily detectable by the human ear and may cause annoyance. Place signs outdoors to remind guests to be respectful of neighbors and have staff periodically patrol outdoor areas to quiet customers as needed. Mr. Tsoukalos has filled in the pool, greatly increasing the surface area of the outdoor entertainment area. He has cut down, or someone has cut down, hedges that the former owners of the Claddagh planted along the fence line to buffer some of the noise. All of that is gone. Our concern is that now with this greater surface area, more people, more voices, music aside, we're already going to be dealing with the annoyance of human voice that's going to carry through our neighborhood. Finally, in terms of facing the speakers north, I'll have my neighbors to the south speak to that. Sound is funny. It's funny in the neighborhood. We know with a southwest wind, it could bounce anywhere. The sound engineer corroborated that this is a unique geography, topography in our neighborhood, and sound carries very strangely. So just by placing the speakers in a different spot, if you place them south, my neighbors to the south are going to hear it. If you place them east, that beautiful yellow house that's being renovated is going to get blasted. If you place them west, those people are going to hear it. So it's really, I think there's a misconception here that it's the neighbors to the north who are concerned about it, and there's just a few of us. It's not. It's the West Harwich neighbors are united in this and our concerns for this in general.
So just to follow up on what you initially said.
Yes, ma'am.
We went out at the invitation of Mr. Tsoukalos, and I think that if I recall correctly, in the initial meeting, he invited everybody from the, I thought he invited.
No, ma'am.
Out. No, I did not invite. I'm not saying to our, because we just arranged to come at some time and the other board members were welcome to go, but I thought you did say, first of all, you had some meetings with the neighbors, correct? Right?
Yes, he had a meeting with us. It was not a sound test. It was just an initial meeting that we had on April 4th, I think, when you first decided to kind of table his entertainment license so that neighbors could have a dialogue about it. Two neighbors and I went to talk to him. And we had, while the conversation was pleasant, Mr. Tsoukalos made it abundantly clear that he was going to go for the most that he could get for a license, both indoor and outdoor, at the time. So, and another letter dated just says here, inviting you, the board, and let's see. I would like to invite any and all selectmen at your convenience to a live demonstration at my property showing the location, sound, and type of music I will have. Not neighbors, we were not informed. I came across that in the 207-page packet on pages 198 and 199. That's how we found out about it.
So I thought that I thought neighbors had been out.
No,
with the
ma'am.
Sound test.
No,
So,
ma'am.
you know.
Had we been invited, we would have made every effort to be there, even
Well,
though.
again, for clarification, we made individual visits. So we
Okay.
didn't have a
Okay.
predetermined meeting
Okay.
to invite you to.
Okay.
So I just want to be clear, myself and Chris and I work full-time, and
Yes.
I managed to get there.
Yes,
So,
I appreciate that.
you know.
I appreciate that you got there and that
I'm
you had
I'm
the
just
sound
clarifying
test.
that the
Mhm.
board did not have a specified meeting date out there. And
Okay.
that my
Thank you.
understanding was that the neighborhood had an opportunity to have a discussion. I did not know that you did not have a meeting with the speaker on site, et cetera. So just want to clarify that for you.
Okay, I appreciate that. I wasn't intimating that the board needed to invite us. That's for Mr. Tsoukalos to do, to open up the dialogue. So those are my 3 points. I have one question, since you did do the sound test. Did you go off-site to listen to the music?
We did it multiple times.
Okay.
And,
The-
and I misspoke when I said to the south. Chris is right. It was directed towards the building.
Okay. And it said, did not produce plainly audible noise to the closest concerned neighbor. Is that Mr. Carney's residence?
That is correct.
Okay. And you were on his porch or on his deck?
We walked all the way down the street.
We stayed on the public way. We're
Yeah,
not
couple
we didn't go
times.
onto private property.
Okay. But you didn't knock on his door or say, can we come inside and hear the music with the windows and doors closed? And no? Okay.
We
Miss-
did not.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
we didn't.
Um,
So as to say,
yeah.
if we didn't hear it, there would be no need to ask Mr. Carney if he could hear it. We didn't hear it.
I think it's very
Okay, so
different.
we're not going to debate
Yeah,
this.
no, let's
Make
not
your
debate this.
comments and
I made
let's
my
keep
comments.
time.
Thank you
Yeah.
for listening to me. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'd like to answer some of the questions that she has. I never said that I wanted everything I could get. That was not the question. I wanted music and
Excuse me,
entertainment.
he's speaking, so if you have something to say, you can come up to the podium, identify yourself, and share your comments. Thank you.
When you go for your license in an area, you have to establish occupancy. There's a large area in the back. That does not mean I can have 220 people. My septic allows 97 people. It's 57 inside and 40 outside. I could have 200 based on the fire department, but not with the septic department.
Thank you.
So that's clear. So we will not have 200 people out there partying and screaming. Let's see. So when she mentioned that I filled in the pool, that was to have cornhole or bocce or some recreational kind of thing, not to have more people there. Okay? And I think.
Thank you.
I'm still Sebastian Woodry, 54 Smith Street, West Harwich. And I will read a page that I wrote for Mary and for the board, for you. And then I'll make a personal statement about my experience 40 years ago that I'm now living with as a consequence of one loud New Year's Eve party 40 years ago. Then I will simply cite a Mayo report, documentation about the effects of loud noise, if I may. Okay. Thanks, Mary. Got the paper which asserts speakers will not face north. That's fine, but does not assure us amplified sound won't spill over onto every direction. That's the nature of amplified sound. It's loud and it's not unidirectional. I spoke to a colleague, fellow writer who's a drummer, and she informed me today that deep notes, bass notes, low frequency sound is omnidirectional. It goes in every direction. It cannot be made to face a particular direction. We on Smith Street live in a rural area. It's not typical suburbia. Just as you heard from the earlier advocates for peace and quiet in their neighborhood and not seeing an enhanced roadway, we're far away enough from 28 not to hear car traffic, but an unmuffled motorcycle intrudes upon Smith. I back into Bell's Neck Conservation Land, and I hear peepers now, in season. 3 homes east of mine is a family with 4 or 5 horses, and I enjoy hearing the clomps, their hooves, on the wooden floor of the barn. I smile when their donkey, and I'm sure it's a rescue animal, brays. It's a delight to be outside in my backyard. It's quiet. The new owner wants to create amplified music outside. I am 1/10 of a mile. I took a look at the odometer. What's that, 500 feet? I do not believe that the owner's mission is to respect neighbors' need for quiet peace. It is for his own personal business needs that he wants to be able to make more money. And if we are nice mice, we lose. We, on Smith Street and surrounding areas, want to be the mouse that roared. The squeaky wheel became a cliche because it's true. No nice mice on Smith Street. We roar, we argue, we describe our sanctuary away from intrusions from the world of noise pollution and polluters, till we ask you to hear us and act for us. The inn owner can have amplified music inside his domain, with windows and doors closed, and acoustic outside. Acoustic means any instrument, a saxophone, a trumpet, drums, as long as they're not electronically amplified, that is fine. And if you've ever heard any of those, if you've heard bagpipes, you don't need amplification. He could have a bagpipe convention there, and that would be fine. There's no amplification. As long as it's acoustic, it's fine with us, the neighborhood. If his clients can't hear, they can get hearing aids. And parenthetically, some, no doubt, have hearing loss already because of relentless exposure to loud amplified sound. One concert, Natalie McMaster and family at Monomoy High School, was so loud that my earplugs weren't enough. And I always carry these. In fact, I have spares in the other pocket, and I'll tell you why in a moment. I won't go back to performances at our high school auditorium. Once was enough. And yes, during intermission, I spoke to the soundboard master, told him the volume was excessive, even with earplugs. He did nothing to reduce the oppressive sound. Some are oblivious to the effects they have upon another. What they want is the only thing they see or hear or advocate for. We want peace and quiet, which is what we have, and I believe we're entitled to. Peace and quiet is restorative, invaluable. And I'll tell you about my personal experience. Two couples at a church New Year's Eve party. Unfortunately, our church hired a DJ. And this DJ was insidious because we were talking at a normal conversational volume, like this, no microphone. We could just talk back and forth. We could hear each other perfectly. And we engaged in a give and take.
I need you to speak into the microphone.
I understand that. I'll speak into the microphone. We could speak at normal levels. We could speak at this level. But then over the course of 4 hours, from 9 o'clock until 1 a.m., he had cranked up the volume so that at 1 and 1:30, and I can do it now because the dog is not here. I wouldn't do it, but the dog is not here. I would like you to hear, and you might want to cover your ears, what we had to do to be heard. We had to yell at each other.
Okay.
You don't want to hear my shouts?
Not
No.
really, no.
Well, you got the idea. The music was so loud, we could not make ourselves heard sitting across from each other unless we yelled. That night, I left at around 1:32 a.m. with stuffed up ears. About 4 a.m. I woke up, and I've had ringing in my ears, tinnitus, ever since. That was 4 decades ago. I've seen audiologists, I've had brain scans, I've had it checked out. It turns out that one loud exposure can be enough to cause the little cilia in the inner ear to lie down. If you visualize Mount St. Helena and the trees blasted down, that's what those little hairs do, and they self-stimulate. So within the 2,000 to 6,000 frequency range, I hear that all the time. It's like a radio that is out of tune. That's all the time. And yet my hearing is excellent. I hear fine. I hear a chair I heard a chair before, and I can identify that chair, and I won't embarrass the person, but my hearing is excellent. But I have to avoid doctor's orders, loud noise. I cannot have more than one drink, alcohol, beer, any beverage. I don't smoke. My blood pressure is good. But doctor's orders are for me to avoid loud noise. So I always have earplugs and a spare. If I may, just cite research from the...
I think at this point, there's a couple speakers behind you, and we'll give them an opportunity.
May I submit this to you so that you could read it into the record?
You may submit it, right,
I will do that, so I don't have to read it.
no.
Okay. And it's entitled Loud Noise Exposure, and the source is the Mayo Clinic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify something. I had done a
Can you
distance-
just go up to the microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, I had done a distance test. So where we were standing on the day in front of Mr. Carney's house, that's 300 feet from the furthest area that I could put any kind of music, sound from that fenced-in area. It is 1,000 feet to the corner of Smith and Mansion. So I just wanted to give you a perspective of where anyone on Smith Street is beyond 1,000 feet of a distance.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kathleen Healy, and I'm a resident of Harwich and former musician at the Clatta. I'm a musician still. And I will say that when we played at the Clatta, it was always, which I always thought was a terrible idea, and despite my expressing that, we were elevated. We were up on the deck. And so they put that lovely fence up, and I'm like, but the speakers are going right over the fence. And despite you guys saying, don't do that, and then us showing up to play, and them saying, well, we can't spare the tables on the floor, so we want you up there, we would play there. And it got to the point where I stopped going to play because I thought it was disrespectful. And I know and love some of the members. Not that I don't love some of the members, but I don't know many. But the members of the community who live there, I are dear friends of mine, and I love them. And I certainly don't want to do anything to interrupt their peace and quiet. I live in Harwich Center in a very peaceful neighborhood, and I'm very happy for that. But I spoke to Jim when he first opened, and my husband and I went in for dinner, which was delicious. I know one patron who lives down North Street, maybe, has been there several times. Deirdre Callanan, I don't think she could be here tonight. She walks over, she loves the entertainment idea, that's walking distance to her house, and she's enjoyed several meals there. But from speaking to Jim, he absolutely said that's idiotic to have the music up there. Why did they do that? And I said, I know. So just by being below the fence line, I think you're really eradicating a lot or all of the problem. And I do know we were up there, and then you get that south wind, which we know, we're Cape Cod, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the wind turns around, it blows south 98 out of 100 days. So when you're up there and the wind is blowing, but when you're down, and I really think that's solving a lot. I also, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but I don't think he's planning to have bands out there. And I know that the owners of the Clatta love to have bands, Link Rider and the Rough Rider, or Link Montana and the Rough Riders, and those were great days. But Jim did meet with the neighbors, and he recognizes, and he did hear them, and he did call on past musicians, not just me, during the franchise, other musicians, said, what can we do to ensure that this won't be, because he doesn't want to anger his neighbors. And I really would hate to see this community of intelligent people judge somebody based on the actions of a very different family. So who I loved and was friends with, I didn't agree with all their business practices. So I just, as a musician living in Harwich, on the cover of Harwich Neighbors at one point, and I don't work very much in Harwich. I've tried, but I don't. The beer garden kind of hires a lot of guys. I would love to play in my town. I would love that opportunity. So when he was open, I just said, if you're looking, I play by myself or with a duo partner. He plays mandolin, and we'd love to play here. And he said, well, I'm working on it. I'll keep you updated. So I just hope you will consider him as what he said, as a new entity, who I think is starting out being respectful. And he did call upon the people who used to play there when there were noise complaints and said, "What, in your opinion, what do you think we can do?" And as a folk singer, one of the first things I do, he's looking for music during the dinner hour. One of the first things I always do is I say, "I'm background music to your dinner, and please let me know. I do not want people to have to shout to each other over their dinner. That's not most musicians' intent." So, and it seems to me the people he's talking to about bringing in are those who would be respectful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sir,
You
sure.
play a guitar?
I do.
And what do you, when you normally play a gig, do you amplify your guitar?
I do, because I wish I had it with me. In a room like this, it would. It's very quiet, but I also struggle with vocal health. So for me to sing for 2 hours through a dinner hour unamplified would strain my voice and jeopardize my career. But I'm not. My point is never to be loud. I just want to be heard, and as a musician, I'm always open to a patron complaining, and certainly I know. I was there on 3 of the times not playing when you guys were called for noise complaints, or the town, and I know the musician it was, and I know the owners asked him to turn down, and I watched him turn back up, and he's not someone I would hire if I owned an establishment. And as far as I know, Jim, that's not one of the people he's thinking of hiring. It's rude when a bar owner says, "Listen, going to O'Shea's any night, if Evie's behind the bar, if you're too loud, she gets out from behind the bar and she turns it down, and you better not turn it up or you will never be playing at O'Shea's Old Inn again." You respect the owners of that establishment and the relationships they're making with the community, and when they say you got to turn down, you turn down. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ira Mendoza. I live at 72 Smith Street. I have a couple of questions. When you did the sound test, what kind of music were you using?
So it was amplified music from rock and roll. Yeah, rock and roll. Yeah.
A radio? Was it
No.
streaming?
d-
Was
Jim,
it a band?
Can you come up to the podium?
There was 2 types. One was her laptop playing music, and then she's a guitarist.
Right.
So she was sing-along type.
Okay. And also, you have your own sound system?
No, they bring their own.
So who will be the responsible party to make sure that their speakers are going to be facing the building?
I'm responsible for everything.
Okay.
And just to embellish upon that, that's why we also asked for the site plan to show the direction, so that if there
Correct.
was a complaint and the police were called, that they too, that this would be on record, so that they would have that. If the speakers were facing north, south, these were pivoted so that when we were there, it was.
Well, I think we're all here because we don't want to involve the police anymore. We don't want to have to go
I
through
would
that
agree,
again.
But for that point, for a point of reference for the police, if, as you know, it can be difficult for the police with a 150-foot bylaw.
Right.
So sometimes if you walk in and it's not set up as we had agreed, that's why we asked for this plan.
And the noon to 8 p.m. entertainment license, 7 days a week? Okay. So I agree with Kathleen in a lot of aspects. I want to see a place where musicians can play. However, Kathleen also pointed out there's some bad bands out there that aren't going to pay attention to this, that are going to set up their sound system the way they want to be heard. You may be there. Are you going to be there 7 days?
I live in the place.
Okay. What happens if he sells the business? Let's say in a year he sells the business, the license goes with it. We have a new,
So, no, it doesn't. They have to come back.
they'll have to come back.
And I apologize, I don't believe he's applied for a Sunday entertainment license.
That goes
I don't
through the
think-
state.
Right.
You have to apply to the state
Right,
for that.
so.
Okay, so I guess my concern is, if he gets this license,
We'll have to.
we have a musician that is going to just blast the music because that's the way he wants his music heard. Once again, we're getting everyone else involved. We're not going to have that peaceful night. What scares me, though, is when you do sell a business and there's already an entertainment license, it's much easier to keep it. It can be handed down to the next party. We're going to be back here again?
I guess you're supposing that he's going to sell the business, and I mean, ultimately, we can't make that call. That would mean that any business that comes in front of us with a liquor license, we'd be supposing that they were selling the
Well, I
business.
guess it's just because there's a history there in this particular location.
I understand, but this is a new owner, and the board does have to review the owner with the abilities that he has to run his business. We can't preclude that he's going to sell the place and and look to transfer his liquor license. That wouldn't be fair of the board.
So again, if we're having a peaceful Saturday afternoon at home, trying to listen to the donkeys, I live next to the horse farm and the donkeys and the peepers, and then the music starts coming through, we get the police involved, and where does this bring us back to?
Well, I think that, do you have a question?
Because you had that one unruly rocker.
It brings you back to once they get 3 complaints, they come back to the Board of Selectmen, and we can take their license away.
Okay.
Just like that, and we usually have the town
I want to see
administrator.
businesses
Right.
thrive. I want to see musicians thrive. But I also want my peace and quiet.
And we understand that, and that's also why there's a bylaw. That's also why we went out to visit. We're not dismissing the issues of the past. However, we have a new business owner, and if there are continuous complaints, there's a process for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And actually, I'm going to ask you to let the gentleman behind you speak first, because she's going to speak for you. Okay, that's fine. I just didn't want to.
Mary Albus, Smith Street. Just have a couple of clarifications. One, I believe the musician was correct that there was sign of like a stage, and the music did go over the fence. But there were also times where the bands were on the pool deck, and during the time when Mr. McManus and I went to the sound check, the speakers were clearly on the pool deck. So there are more issues than just the elevation of the band. And when the Claddagh had a license, there were seven clarifications, and one was the Cape Cod Claddagh Inn will provide a house sound system for all outside entertainment. All performers will use the house system, and that was a provision of their license at the time. And it took us many years to get to that point. And so that would be, if you decide to move forward with this, something that I would recommend. Another question I have is, has there been any thought given to some kind of noise baffle or tent or something to cover the outdoor area that might direct the sound not north, not south, east, or west, but down? I don't know, I'm not a sound engineer, but I'm just thinking kind of outside the box here. This is what's called a compromise, and just some food for thought about, if you move forward with their outdoor license, which I hope you don't, some things that I hope you'll consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Bob Carney, 5 Mansion Street. You know, for the last 2 years, it's been awesome around our neighborhood. You know, with the Claddagh not playing the outdoor music. I just can't believe, after 7 years of fighting and coming back and forth to this meeting, here we are again on outdoor entertainment. I just don't understand the logic here that all the neighbors have been fighting for 7 years. We finally have 2 good years, and you're going to do it back again with no compromise. It's amazing to me that we're even here in this room talking about outdoor entertainment. You know, I just don't understand and to have a meeting, to go there and not to be asked to be invited. You know, I can't understand why he didn't invite the neighbors for the sound test. That to me, and when we were in the first meeting, he did say he's gonna go for everything he can. 12 o'clock license he wanted. And so I'm just saying, he's not that nice of a guy.
So, you know, first of all, just to respond, I mean, ultimately, you're here because there's a new owner.
I know.
And he has property rights, and he's in a commercially zoned property.
I know he
So
does.
ultimately, he's coming to the board, and it's our job to have this.
Well, I kind of think that with the history from there, that when they gave him when he filed for the license, we weren't notified about that, because we would have been at the life board meeting fighting him on that. So I understand you're out there, and then when the southwest wind blows in the summertime, it's a lot different than in March and April.
Thank you.
The reason that I did not invite the neighbors to such a thing is I'm not sure that they want me to have any business here. And it would just be an argument between us. I have a standard I was trying to reach. When I say compromise, I didn't mean I'm negotiating or anything. We wanted to get it to a point where they would not hear it, and that's what I tried to do. No matter what I did there, they would not be happy with. So I didn't invite them. I just tried to get to a standard where they would not be hearing the music that I was going to play. And that's what I thought we did when we were there.
I apologize, that was my misunderstanding. I thought that they were invited, so.
Bob Cohn, 29 Pleasant Street in Harwich Port. Madam Chair, board members. I've had the distinct privilege of having a front row seat to both the parking issues and the noise issues. And as I said earlier today, the way things were handled with the parking committee, it was just wonderful. I mean, we were starting from a point much like these people are now, and things got resolved through a reasonable process. So I can't help but think that something similar might be trickier, but I can't help but think that something similar, an entertainment committee or noise committee, whatever it's called, might work to dampen things. Because it's not just in West Harwich, as you well know, it's all through Harwich Port. What seems to happen is there's no real public dialogue occurring except when a license is renewed or applied for or extended. And when that happens, someone's livelihood is on the line. And meantime, the neighbors are panicking that their entire summer is going to be wiped away with noise every evening. I know a number of physical changes have occurred, apparently, I've heard. Speakers pointing in different directions at different venues. The only forum we have currently in addressing issues from that is through the police. A committee would give us a public, open forum and an ability to have a dialogue, some back and forth. People could calm down and approach this in a more reasonable way. So I think it's time to recognize that better planning and management is needed, and I can't think of a better way than to use a committee, much like the parking committee. That should do it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judy Blatchford, and I live on Smith Street. And I have to concur with one of the previous speakers who said it's been a really nice 2 years having peace and quiet. The topography there is very different, and what you may not hear at the end of Mansion Street, you hear down at 72 Smith Street. And there were nights that, I'd put in 14 hours of work, and I've come home, and all I hear is thump, 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 thump. and it's very nerve-wracking. And trying to get sleep so I can get up the next day and go to work and do it all over again is quite difficult. I also agree with Kathleen Healy. You know, I love music. I want to see business thrive in Harwich. I want to see musicians thrive. My concern is that, yes, we have a history, and there are a lot of elements that are part of this history, and unique elements. And yes, we do have a new owner, and we don't know what he's bringing to the table. So maybe we should start with some baby steps. Maybe we should start with a limited license, something that would be like 3 nights a week, like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and give us at least 3 nights of peace and quiet. And that way, maybe we can come back and see and reevaluate how it worked for all of us. Because really, there are times that I've had to close my windows. There are times that I've had friends over and eating in the backyard, and we've had difficulty, you know, talking to each other. I could sing the songs that were playing. They were that loud. So I just would like to ask that perhaps if we're going to try to compromise, that maybe we can, you know, if you grant the amplified music, that we can do it on a limited basis and do it as a tryout, and we can work in good faith with one another, and maybe we can solve this problem so we don't show up back here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to share some things that do happen as the businesses, oh, Cindy from the Harwich Chamber of Commerce. Sorry, it's 9:30. One of the things that we've started to do with the public safety right before the season, and we're doing it next week, is to have a meeting. So it's the police, the fire, the Board of Planning Board, building, myself, and all of the businesses that are restaurants, bars, and liquor stores. So they understand what the policies and procedures are for the season, whether or not it's 150, whether or not you can have a A-frame sign, all of the things that they need to know to make sure that everyone is safe and that we don't have any issues. So Mr. Cohen brought up a great idea, having a committee. We kind of have that, but more on a bigger scale with the people that need to regulate this for the businesses. So next week, we will be bringing together all of the Harwich businesses that will be, that have an entertainment license, but also the liquor stores and the restaurants. So this does work, and again, this year, as I've said on a number of occasions for some of these meetings, it's a year of educating people, and that includes our businesses. So I hope you'll all kind of help us all work through the growing pains, because we do have a amazing town and great businesses. So just wanted to update everybody.
Thank you, Cindy. Helpful information.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I'm Paul Norton, 68 Smith Street. Jim asked my wife and I to come down here just to speak in his behalf. I'm not sure how much I can do after listening to that, but I'm right in the middle of that neighborhood, and we've only been there for about a year and a half now. I frequent the place. I know what the clatter was, and I didn't need to live in that neighborhood to know that that was enough said there. But I'd like to see Jim get this, because I like the place personally. It's walking distance from my house. And one of the things I was a little curious about is, we're talking about limiting the license. We don't even know what he's going to do yet. I would say give him the license and then checks and balances backwards if there's a problem. I doubt there's going to be a problem. I know the man, but anyways, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Marchand, and I live right behind the tavern. We've been there for 16 years, and we've had 2 years of peace. That's it. Oh, fires in the back, knife fights, everybody fighting, coming out drunk, the pool. I couldn't have a barbecue on a Sunday. Nobody wanted to sit on my deck. And this was all the time. And first it was Sunday 12 to 5. Then it went Sunday 12 to 10. Then the other night started, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. And I'm on the south side. So I know the wind's not supposed to go that way, but trust me, it does. And the sound carries. And we're not, I don't know, 50 yards, if we're not even that. It's just, it travels. And if you're going to have, I don't care if it's only 40 people, 50 people. It depends on the people that you attract also. Who are the clientele going to be now that it's a new place? Is it going to be a different clientele, or the same people going to try to move in that were there before, which was horrible? I agree that I think it should be a test. You know, I don't want anybody in my house 7 days a week from 12 to 8. I certainly don't want all those people 8 hours a day for 7 days a week in my backyard. Well, I mean, I don't want my relatives there. So I think a little bit at a time would be fair, you know. I'd like to see, give them a chance. We used to go there years ago to the Clatter when it was different, and they had Irish music and the entertainment, and we loved it. And then it changed, which I'd love to see it go back. I seriously would. But you can't just throw 8 hours a day for 7 days a week in our faces, not after what we've been through. We need a little time to get used to it and to make it work for everybody. And I hope it does.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I'd just like to maybe put some people at ease. I don't plan, and I will not, have bands outside like there was before on the porch blasting out. That's one of the reasons that there was the issues there. The people that I'm going to be hiring, they are soloists, and you're not going to have a set of drums out there with big amplifiers. They're going to have one amplifier like we had, and they're going to sing along. And that's what's going on outside. So, and I hope that you give me the license, and if you do, that's what will occur there. The residents that are concerned are not going to have the rock and roll bands out there.
Thank you.
Bob Carney, 5 Mansion Street. When I'm sitting out on my deck, having supper with my family, that music is going to come over. That's how close I am. I could throw a rock from his property, probably hit mine. So when he's saying amplified music, it's going to be one amplifier. One amplifier leads to 2 amplifiers, leads to 3 amplifiers. You give them, can I just finish? The music that was coming from there, it cost me $15,000 to put central air in my house because I had to close the windows, and we couldn't close the windows because it was so loud, and it was so hot. You got to give the people in West Harwich a break here. 7 years we've been fighting this. Thank you.
Okay. I think that ultimately we've probably covered every topic we can at this point, and so I'm going to go to the board. And just to be clear, on the site plan, there was 1 amplifier. Just 1. Do you have any questions or comments from the board?
Start with Don.
Well,
I love when Don talks.
Ed?
Could just, on the diagram that was in our packet of the outside area, let's see, outdoor area has 4,930 square feet. Licensed area, 4,138 seats, 38 square feet, 40 seats, and the physical occupancy load maximum is 278, that's based on allowing each person standing, I believe it's 2¼ square feet to stand in. And it's a simple arithmetic formula, but in practicality, it doesn't leave any space for anybody to walk through the crowd. I mean, it's just literally how many people can you pack in an area. So it's not really for the operation of a restaurant or a bar or anything. It's not really has no real relationship with how many people you can have in a successful operation.
Ron?
I know Michael appreciates this, but I know as much about sound as he knows about hunting, so probably a little more. I've been playing in a band for 25 years. I've been doing sound reinforcement for 50 years. I don't know how this is going to work out. Much of what they said was true. You get below a certain frequency, and the reason it's omnidirectional is because it's a ground frequency. It goes everywhere. Depending on where the wind goes, the sound is going to change, and certainly we have wind changes all the time here. I know I'm going to get outvoted, but it would be hard for me to vote for 5 or 6 days without at least doing some baby steps to try to figure out what's going to happen in the long term. I know they make drum ISO booths that potentially could be used as an entertainers, if they're only going to be using one entertainer, as an entertainment's booth. But if I were living across the street from that and I was thinking I was in a rural area and then music starts coming through my windows, I'd be a little pissed off. So I'm not going to vote for it unless it's mitigated in the beginning, so we can figure out over the long term just what it is they're hearing. Because going one time, I've done live sound reinforcement right up until this past summer. It's hard to contain this stuff.
Thank you, Don. Excuse me. Michael, Larry?
I thought we had a good compromise presented to us, and that is to start off with the single amplifier in a small group, but maybe something like 3 nights to go easy and see what happens, and keep track of it that way. Because I do think that I used to like the Claddagh as well when we first moved here. We had the Irish sessions that we got here in 2000, and it was great. And they, and quite frankly, when Jack and Eileen got ill health, it all went away. There's absolutely no control. And that's one of the reasons why I have a hard time saying that this would be run the same way with absolutely no control. In saying that, I'd like to give them a chance and do it, maybe Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, several nights, and see how it works out. And then we can come back and review it. I wouldn't wait till the end of the summer. I'd put it on the agenda in a month or two and come back and review it. But I'd be willing for a license with that restriction. I don't know if it's fair to ask him to provide I know you mentioned we asked them to provide their sound system. I don't know if that's necessary, but if he's in control of what that sound system is, you get to the same end result. So that's the direction I'll be pushing.
Thank you, Larry. Michael?
So, the business owner made a comment in the very beginning of this, don't judge me on what happened in the past. I had reviewed all the information and listened to you all, and listened to the last group that was here, which there was more people here last time. And I'm afraid that he is going to be judged by the past. Sounds like they've enjoyed 2 years of peace and quiet, and it sounds like they've done an awful lot of dealing with an old business. I would lean towards I think I would take Sundays out personally. I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, give people their Sundays. But I would do a limited license.
I'd go with that.
With a review, depending on how the neighbors react, and then I would hope the neighbors would pay attention to what he's doing and complain if he's not doing things correctly. Because the other mechanism is call the police. I know you don't want to, but if there's 3 noise complaints, he comes back before the board and we take his license away. Or he gets fined, and if he comes back before the board again, we probably take his license away. So I would support a compromise. I think, I don't see how we could do any better than a compromise.
3.
I could go for that.
Mary Alvis, Smith Street. It would be great to have our Sundays quiet. I would love that. But I believe that that's the purview of the state and not the town. So I think Mr. Tsoukalos has said he's applied to the state for his Sunday license. Do you have any say in that?
It is a separate license.
So we don't technically.
I think it does come here. It's just
Yeah.
Sundays are still blue law. The
So
old
it has
blue
to
law.
come here.
We still approve
We'd
it.
still have to.
Do you still have to,
State-
do you
it's a
still have to
it's like
approve
the
it?
liquor license, 2-stage approval. I think you have to have the state and also the local.
So you would still have to approve that, even if the state approved it, you could deny it?
So,
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Michael?
And condition it.
Or in the goodwill of a compromise, maybe the business owner would just retract that application and give you your Sundays back, because we are talking about compromise, and clearly he's hearing the board right now, which 3 members said that they're willing to do a compromise, so.
Well, I applied to the state for Sundays because the downstairs license requires that. So whatever, when the state agreed, then it would follow whatever license you gave me, in or out, whatever it is. And I just want to make a comment. Mr. Carney here just told me he's going to call every night, just so that it's on the record.
Thank you. So if we're trying to move towards a compromise, I would hope that that wasn't actually accurate, because, I mean, you're setting a business owner up for failure, and that's really unfair. We're all happy that our town is thriving, and, you know, just to speak to the idea that we're trying to compromise and figure out a way that a new business owner is trying to develop his business in town, I would hope that the neighborhood would work with him. And for clarification, go ahead.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
So, for clarification from the board, if we were to move forward with a Wednesday through Saturday kind of amplified music, the one speaker as shown on our current plan, would the other piece be on the other nights other than Sunday, which would leave us with Monday, Tuesday? Is that allowing him to do acoustic on Monday, Tuesday?
Indoor.
Only indoor, so no acoustic.
I'm thinking
I just
indoor
want
and then
clarification for the
outdoor
motion.
was proposed for Thursday,
Chris?
Friday, and Saturday.
I think that Thursday, Friday, Saturday probably makes some sense. I think that's a good approach. I think you can limit to the one, one said Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
Yeah,
Wednesday.
I want to clarify
But if you want to start off with baby steps, the other one, I think you can do the one speaker, no more than 2 speakers. You can limit that, obviously, if enforcement-wise, a police officer can go over and
Right.
see pretty clearly if there's 1 or 2. So I think you probably do want to limit that, so you have the ability to do it. And then I thought, maybe from our discussion, the 12 to 8, I thought that there was 4 to 8 is
I
what we
did
were
too.
kind of.
I did too think it was 4 to 8.
And that may be a place to start, so now you just go with dinner as opposed to lunch and dinner. I
So,
at least wanted to put that out there.
Okay, so the idea is that, I think originally when we spoke, it was 4 to 8. So,
And that's all I'll be playing. I'm not going to
Right.
play at lunchtime.
so for clarification, just to make sure we're all on the same page, we're going to talk about amplified music for Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
From 4 to 8.
4 to 8,
Outdoors.
outdoor,
Outdoors.
indoor only on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Well, the
Indoors.
indoor already got approved.
No,
Absolutely
I
approved.
know that. I'm saying that it's not part of.
It's not part of
This
this.
is my point, is that there's no outdoor music on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
And
No,
Wednesday.
not even acoustic. That's all I'm trying to clarify.
And Wednesday.
And Wednesday.
Oh, sorry, Wednesday. So again, Thursday, Friday,
Happy with the
Saturday, outdoor, amplified as shown on the plan,
Yeah.
correct?
Right.
And then no other outdoor music until, and now I think you should make, include in that
I'll-
motion when you're gonna bring it back.
Okay.
In all fairness.
I'll take a stab at this.
I just ask one question. On the indoor license that we approved, when did we have it starting?
It's consistent with the rest of the licenses.
Yeah,
I think it was like noon or.
I don't remember
Did-
if it was,
Huh?
was it noon time? He's asking when it started.
Can you come up to the podium?
Sorry.
No, I just,
The indoor license runs from noontime to midnight,
midnight,
Yeah.
right,
inside.
inside,
Yes.
right, that's the inside license.
Right.
So again, I was just trying to clarify that, we were covering the correct nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
Okay.
with the one acoustic, one
Well,
amplifier.
I'll take a,
But
Madam
Larry, are you
Chair,
gonna?
I'm gonna take a stab at it.
Okay,
I move, we approve the outdoor entertainment license for music Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 4 o'clock until 8 o'clock, following, according to the plan presented in tonight's packet, which is one speaker and one amplifier, and that we ask for this to be reviewed at the end of July.
And the time 4 to 8.
And
He
the
did
time,
say
I said
four-
that,
he did
4 to
say
8,
4 to
yeah,
8.
4 to 8. And we asked for a formal agenda item at the last week in July.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Do you have a?
No, I'm in.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Okay?
You're abstaining?
Unanimous? No. 401?
Welcome. Okay.
Yeah, it's getting past my
Appointment to the
bedtime.
Republican Town Registrar Dorothy Hemmings Bassett vote.
Madam Chair, I'd move that we appoint Dorothy Hemmings Bassett to the...
Point of order, we've already taken action.
Want me to hit this?
Yeah, we did.
Well,
We
then why-
approved all three of them, and they admitted in the office that it was a mistake that it made it up here.
Excuse me, can you, not to be rude, but can you take the conversation outside? Thank you.
Go ahead.
There was a voted motion. No, there was a voted motion. We approved any of the three to send it forward to the clerk to make a final selection. She's done that.
Okay.
I actually remember that now.
Correct.
So why did, yeah.
Doesn't
I
have to
thought we
Doesn't have
tabled
to be. This was just for our information,
All right, so hold it. All right, so we don't,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it happen more than 10 days ago and none of us can remember?
yeah, really.
I had this dream
Retiree
about
health
bringing
insurance update.
This is an update to the policy adopted last year. The town treasurer suggested that there be two bridge options. There were requests by a retiree that a person who is enrolled in his or her spouse's health insurance plan at the time of retirement may use a bridge option to enroll in the town's insurance policy after 3 months of the retirement of the spouse. Now, it's good for them, but also it's good for the town because the town would not be paying its portion of the health insurance. Under the current system, the person would be basically forced to purchase the insurance, and we would have to pay our share of that for some period of time. So, and you would always hope that the person, by the end of the bridge period, would be 65 and then be on Medicare, and we'd pay even less. It's an accommodation on option A. Option 2, which the treasurer and I spoke of, probably would not occur, but she wanted to have the option where a person was a full-time employee and also had a second job that offered health insurance, and the person used that. It's the 5-year option on that. We were trying to think of an example. There might be one or two, but I think it's a valid option that you should consider. So, any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The treasurer is in full support of this, and I think it should have been in the packet, the form that she redid showing the options, which are signed at the time of retirement.
Thank you, Bob. And Michael brought this to the board, so thank you, Michael.
I guess the only question I have, if I may, why are we limiting it 5 years? What if someone's 7 years in and they want to do it in 7 years?
Just trying to
try and put a cap on it?
Trying to have some cap.
For budget.
You could have 7, 10. It's really an arbitrary number.
It is.
And it only applies to the person who has other insurance, not to the spouse. The spouse is, however long that takes, 3 months after the spouse retires, then they need to make a decision.
So the particular reason I brought this up is a firefighter who retired, and he retired a little bit younger, is on his wife's insurance. Eventually, she's going to retire, and he's going to have to come back on the town insurance.
If you'd like to,
It may
yes,
not
sir.
be 5 years. It may be 7 years, it may be 10 years.
In that case, he has the option because it's 3 months after the spouse retires.
Okay.
So
it's
that could,
covered.
that could go on, who knows. The other option has nothing to do with the spouse. If the person, him or herself, has a second job with health insurance, we wanted to kind of limit that a little bit more. But the spouse, that could be, as you said, Mr. Cathcall, 7, 10 years.
So if we plugged in 10 years, it really wouldn't hurt anything?
On the first option, you don't have to.
Right. But on the second option, if we went with a longer number, it doesn't really hurt
It's-
anything?
Not really. If you wanted 7,
It's giving our
or
retirees...
too long.
I just think it gives our retirees a longer option, and why not give it to them if we can?
And in that option, there's probably one person, so, sure.
Right.
I don't think it makes a difference, so would you like to put 7
I'd move for
as a
7.
start? Done.
Sure.
It's your policy.
Anyone want to make a motion? Is there any other discussion?
I don't, I'll go along, 7's fine.
Ed or Don?
Sure.
Nothing.
Fine.
I move that we approve the retiree health insurance plan as submitted with the 7-year option.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Before we move
Oh,
on to
yes,
the
right.
town administrators, I'm going to pass out something and I'll read it.
Don't pass out.
This is a note from me to you guys. Several weeks ago, I was contacted by the management of the Belmont condominiums in West Harwich.
Let's just get a quick point of order. Where is this on the agenda?
It's not.
Then why are we reading it?
Well, ultimately, this is a,
So you can do it
you
on the
can do it on the,
selectmen's.
okay.
I guess. All right.
Oh, okay,
Are you
that's fine.
are you good with that? Okay. So we'll go to town administrator's report. It won't impact.
No,
Right,
well,
okay,
yeah, go ahead.
okay. Town admin,
In light of the hour, I just wanted to announce that Griffin Ryder did start. Hopefully he stays. We've given him a lot of work already, the town engineer. But he is on board, so it's nice to have him on board. And actually, on the administration goals and objectives, I think in the material I sent out, I did make some suggestions on that going forward. And just in light of the hour, that concludes my report this night.
thank you, and
Just a question on the town administrator's report. Administration goals and objectives under C
Just my suggestion, that was for
For
the performance evaluation
for the
upcoming year,
upcoming year.
2020.
Thank you.
so Ed, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Read it. Several weeks ago, I was contacted by the management of the Belmont condominiums in West Harwich on behalf of 2 residents there. We're looking for an organization to receive the donation of their grand piano and asked if I had any ideas. I contacted the staff at the Cultural Center and asked if they were interested. They were interested, depending on the condition of the instrument, space on the stage for the instrument to reside, and how to move it. I contacted John Page, the Dean of Local Piano Tuners and a Harwich resident, who has actually maintained this particular instrument for many years. He is quite impressed by the condition of the piano and believes it will perform very well in the auditorium at the Cultural Center. He is also able to coordinate moving the instrument on Monday, May 20th. Erica, Carolyn, and I viewed the stage of the Cultural Center and found that on stage right, there is an alcove of sufficient size for the piano. It's actually a typical alcove that is built into most stages for storing equipment like this. In any event, before the piano can be moved, the board and selectmen would need to accept the donation. So on behalf of Jim Hilliard and Christine Rodriguez, who are the residents at the Belmont who are donating the piano, I'm asking that the Harwich Board of Selectmen accept the gift donation of a 6.5-foot grand piano. The reason I'm bringing it up to us tonight, this is, I've been trying to find the appropriate people and get all the different judgments made about the quality of the instrument and whether there's space to keep it. And this sort of all came together while I was on the ferry on Friday over to Nantucket, that the timing of it, the timing for the donors is critical. They are in the process of having their unit renovated, and they need to get it cleared out. So I would ask that the a board vote to accept the donation tonight, so we can move ahead with it
Great.
on Monday next.
Michael?
Consistent as always, this isn't on the agenda. We can't accept a gift. the board can do it if they want, but it's not a listed item on the agenda. It's clearly a violation of open meeting law, so
Well-
I just won't
We can
partake.
do it if it's a emergency
Well,
situation.
Well,
and
it
it
has-
was unanticipated at the time the agenda was due,
That's
That's
right.
my piece.
so.
So, I mean, it's a donation, I don't, is there,
It's technically a
Still have to-
gift, the board does need to formally accept the gift.
Don?
Madam Chair, let me see if I can try to salvage both sides here. Is anybody going to be on the town side moving that thing?
Yes, actually, and that was the other consideration.
Okay, well, that blows that out of order. I was thinking you perhaps if it was privately moved, we could put it on the agenda for next week, and actually accept it as a gift. I don't know how you can do it, because Michael's right, it's not
So
on.
then put it on, I guess it's gonna have to go on the agenda for,
Maybe you could move it.
then we may lose it.
You'll lose it, so, you know.
I mean, you could
Who's picking it up?
conceivably,
Huh?
you could conceivably move
They've got
it and
cleared out
then
of the
vote it
apartment.
officially,
They have a contractor,
No, but
written.
acknowledge receipt of it next week,
John Page.
but move it and then just house it for a week until it gets voted.
Huh?
I mean, we're not looking to have any kind of open meeting violation, but we also, if it's a gift of a piano, then it'd be nice to have.
Last night, I got something.
Well, we have two
acceptable.
conversations going on. I want to know what our options are.
So
Okay.
Chris is the town administrator, and I would imagine Chris as the town administrator and Carolyn as the director of the cultural center could probably make a decision. And then it could be put on the agenda for next week for the board to accept it, but that's about as far as I'm going.
I mean, I don't see anybody saying
want-
no.
what-
Just
Yeah.
bring it
Why
over.
don't we do it that way?
Administration will have it moved, so we'll bring it over, and then the board can officially accept it. So in the worst-case scenario, if the board didn't accept it, we'd have to
Take it to the
Should
dump.
move it
ship it
again.
off somewhere.
They won't accept it.
It probably went, yeah.
Chris has a sticker, he's a resident.
It ends up at your house, Michael, but that's.
So I'm going to ask if the board will indulge me to go first on the selectmen's report, because I would just like to call attention, and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you didn't notice already yourselves, but I found it unfortunate last week at town meeting that I felt, a couple of our department heads were treated unfairly. I think that there's a process involved in everything we do. And we had pet cemetery discussions for a year. There was obviously movement on both sides, which is exactly what government is about, and discussion and debate and all of those things. But I found it a bit unfortunate last week that Robin Kelly, I think, really, was pounded constantly, and I found it difficult, really, to watch. So I just wanted to go on record as saying that, we have some great department heads in our town. We're lucky to have them. We're constantly acknowledging that at our meetings. I also thought it was unfortunate the way Link Hooper was treated, in the sense of we had a gentleman stand up and, go through a whole list of the trucks as if somehow Link was hiding things and doing other things with the truck inventory. And in actuality, he was not at all, and his report was quite accurate. And I never saw that gentleman stand back up and apologize to Link, because had he reached out maybe directly and asked the question, he would have got his answer. So I also found it incredibly unfortunate that we would deny a student the right to speak on the plastic water bottle ban. I thought that was incredibly acidic behavior, and just very sad to see that things could disintegrate to that level, and I hope that next year it's better. I also hope that people will turn out for town meeting, because ultimately we have roughly 12,000 people in town. 600 people turn up. Some people consider it the purest form of government, and I think that in some ways, and it really isn't. So I think that, I hope that things will improve. I hope those department heads know how much they're valued. So I appreciate you letting me say that this evening. I hope that we always continue to value our students. They're our future voters. We're lucky that they're willing to participate, and I think it's great for the teachers to make sure the kids participate. So I certainly don't think we should shoot them down, and I'd like to thank our town moderator, Michael Ford, for overruling that decision and allowing the student to speak. And the only other thing I want to say is I received a notification about Phase 2 sewer discussion taking place,
The
which is
21st.
5/21, right, at 5 PM, I believe, here in this room. So thank you, and whoever else wants to. Don? you wanna-
We still at town meeting?
Did you want to comment on the next meeting may start off at South Harwich Meeting House and then come back here?
Oh, right,
Just
yeah.
as an announcement?
Yeah, sorry. And then the meeting on Monday, 5/20, will be starting at the Old South Harwich Meeting House for technically a tour, a visit, to see the great renovation that's gone on there. I appreciate the board indulging me in that. I've wanted to have a meeting there for quite some time, and I think it's just a great asset for the town. So we will, I don't really know when we will return here, so I don't really know
We'll
how to.
figure out the timing.
Yeah, so, anyway, thank you for pointing that out, Chris.
Mhm.
Larry?
Nothing, I appreciate your remarks. It was unfortunate.
Michael?
I have nothing.
I agree with the chair's remarks, but I will take note that I was really heartened to see 400 people roughly, at about 10 to 1, stick it out to the end. It was, I don't know that I've seen that ever in 30 years, so that was terrific. Keep coming out.
Can I get a motion?
Adjourn.
Somebody second?
Just a second, yeah, we're out of here.